Chapter 761, Old Acquaintance I, Lijiang Town. Lijiang Town was now the largest town by the lake. It even surpassed Milin Town at the center of Milin Prefecture. The area had been ravaged beyond recognition, and since the Li family no longer acknowledged the Milin prefectural system, they had divided the region into several towns for separate governance. Now that the population was spread out, none of the other towns could compare to Lijiang Town. The restaurant was bustling with noise. People moved up and down the pale red wooden steps, while a monk sat alone at the highest level. His head was cleanly shaven and his eyes were quietly fixed on his wine cup. Those who dined and drank in this place were not ordinary folk. Most were scions of prestigious families. Several guests kept anxiously glancing over, unease in their hearts. After a quarter of an hour, they hastily ended their banquets and scattered in all directions. Soon the upper level of the restaurant was deserted, and even passers-by grew sparse. Cultivators in white armor began appearing among the thinning crowd. Li Chenghui arrived with his men and ascended the stairs without hesitation. Since the Li family was currently undergoing many personnel changes, there were numerous vacancies. As both his cultivation and age had reached the necessary threshold, Li Chenghui now served under his cousin Li Qingliu. As the direct son of Li Zijai, he was someone Li Qingliu frequently relied upon. But just as he entered the building, he was promptly stopped by a middle-aged man in white robes. The man had a rather handsome face and had the calm demeanor of someone in his middle years. Siwei's presence was imposing, and his expression was serious as he spoke softly. "You are of the Qingdu bloodline, young master. It's not appropriate for you to go in person. Allow me to meet him instead." Chen Yang stood behind Siwei, dressed in black, his brows slightly close set and his eyes flickering with unease and suspicion. Li Chenghui clasped his hands in acknowledgement and nodded, letting the two of them proceed. When they climbed the crimson steps, they saw the monk still seated at the table, which was now filled with fine wine and meats. It seemed he had gathered them from the hastily abandoned tables nearby. It was an awkward sight. He didn't eat. He only poked at the food with his chopsticks and stared blankly into space. When he saw the two approach, Siwei clasped his hands and spoke in a soft tone. "Greetings, master. I am Siwei of the Li family. I wonder, master." The monk had slightly short eyebrows. Though his face was clean and bright, and his hair completely shaven, there was still a faint trace of a hardened, resolute air about him. He gently tapped his jade chopsticks together and finally spoke, "Siwei of the Li family." Quite capable indeed. His voice was hoarse, carrying a hidden chill that did not show on the surface. Siwei grew suspicious at his cryptic reply and asked, "Forgive my ignorance, master. I cannot grasp your Zen words. What do you mean?" The monk poured himself a drink and replied quietly, "They once said Li Tongya and Li Xuanxun were so ambitious that they seemed like wolves in human skin. I never believed it, but looking at the outcome now, perhaps it wasn't so unbelievable after all." The wine let out a chime as it splashed into the jade cup, and Siwei could detect the disrespect in his words and felt displeased, replying curtly, "It seems this master has heard some rumors, but the times shift and the mandate of heaven changes hands. A single judgment cannot define the outcome." The monk let out a cold, dismissive laugh at the mention of the mandate of heaven and asked, "Who is in Jingming to you?" Siwei's expression darkened at the question. After a moment he replied, "He was my elder brother." A cold wind suddenly swept through the building as a young man in white robes appeared. He raised his sword-like brows slightly. "I am Li Zijun. Greetings, master monk." Though the Li family did not follow the Tao of Buddhism, they could still roughly judge a person's strength. Li Zijun could feel the monk's heavy and oppressive presence. He carried a clear sense of threat. A trace of wariness rose in his heart. The monk remained seated and replied hoarsely, "Su Mu of the Five-Eyed Temple. Greetings, fellow cultivator." "It's him." Li Zijun was familiar with the name. A few days ago they had captured two people, and the old Taoist Fu Yuan of Mount Zioshi had clearly been influenced by the Five-Eyed Merciful One. It seemed this monk had deliberately released him to probe for information. That monk's name had been mentioned, and it was indeed Su Mu. Li Zijun spoke with a faintly cold tone, "Master monk, your methods are impressive indeed, borrowing the bodies of cultivators to spy upon others." Su Mu waved his hand dismissively and replied calmly, "A mere trick, nothing more." He stared at Li Zijun's brows and eyes for a moment, as if trying to recall something, then spoke, "I once entrusted something to your esteemed family. I wish to meet Li Xuanxun. Is he still alive?" Li Zijun remained silent for a moment, then gestured to Siwei, who quickly departed toward Qingdu. Master monk Su Mu pointed to the seat opposite him and smiled. "Zijun, please have a seat for now." He continued, "Even in the north I heard of Li Tongya. He did great things. Such a pity that he fell in the end. Grudges and debts, aren't they all meaningless in the end?" Li Zijun stayed guarded, wary of any hidden intent in his words, and chose not to reply. Su Mu, undisturbed, pulled a copper sword from his sleeve. Its cold gleam illuminated his face as he spoke softly. "In our youth, he and I once crossed blades. Back then, I still had a worldly name." He flipped the sword over and said in a quiet voice, "Yu Mujian." At that moment, the restaurant fell utterly silent. It was so quiet one could hear a pin drop. The atmosphere turned eerie. Chen Yang stood to the side, every hair on his body standing on end. It felt as if he were balanced on the edge of a blade, caught between advancing and retreating. Li Zijian's expression remained calm. He placed one hand on his sword and spoke softly, "So it's you, senior." Su Mu didn't respond, and the atmosphere sank into heaviness once more. Creak. An old man hurried up the stairs. Li Xuanxun was holding an axe-shaped Dharma artifact that hadn't been used in decades. His robe was slightly disheveled as he stared intently at the two figures. Clang. Li Zijian had already drawn his sword. The long blade angled toward the ground as he positioned himself protectively in front of the old man. His other hand had crushed a jade talisman, and his eyes were locked on the monk before him. Su Mu let out a sigh and replied, "It's been a long time, Taoist Xuanxun. And you are?" Li Xuanxun was stunned by the voice. He stared closely at the monk's eyes and brows. There was something familiar about them. After searching his memory twice over, he finally matched them with a cultivator he once knew. Shock surged through him, and his lips trembled slightly as he said, You've actually returned. The sharper the advance, the swifter the retreat. The strength of a blade lies in how it is concealed before it's drawn." Su Mu sat quietly, his gaze fixed on the copper sword. The cold, radiant gleam cast a pale light on his clean, white face. He said hoarsely, "In my youth, I wielded my edge recklessly, left my family in anger, went to the northern frontiers, slew devil cultivators, honed my swordsmanship, walked thousands of miles on foot, and crossed the Taihang. I poured all my emotion into the sword and cast everything else into emptiness. Now, looking back at the past 100 years, my eldest brother perished, consumed by endless schemes. Our family was extinguished. My second brother sacrificed himself to stop a formidable foe, burning to death when his cover was blown. My youngest brother sought immortality to survive, only to be slain by our enemies." Chapter 762, Old Acquaintance II. At that moment, hair slowly began to grow atop Su Mu's head, and his body grew broader and more imposing. He looked more and more like his prime, yet his eyes never left the sword in his hand. "I, Su Mu, have pondered what Senior Tongya once said for many years. Now that I believe I am ready, I've come back to reclaim my sword." Crack, heavy white mist burst from all 5 of his orifices, sweeping through the restaurant. Buds sprouted from the wooden stairs only to quickly rot away. The steamed chicken on the table twitched twice, grew feathers, cried out twice within the white mist, and crumbled into dust. Li Zijian drew his sword and swept the white mist rushing toward them aside. He then lifted both companions and sent them outside the restaurant in the same breath. Chen Yang, being farther away, was merely brushed by the edge of the mist. A few threads from his gray robe's hem drifted loose and fell. White mist surged out with each breath Yu Mujian exhaled. Though it stopped flowing from his 5 orifices, it still billowed from beneath his robes. He spoke coldly, "I wonder how much of Li Tongya's true teachings you've inherited, Zijian." Li Zijian sheathed his sword and formed a seal with one hand, suppressing the surging mist. He replied calmly, "There are many mortals here. Master Monk, please take this duel with me to the lake." Yu Mujian narrowed his eyes slightly, drew his sword, and stepped forward. He vanished and reappeared over the lake in an instant. Li Zijian followed a step behind, his figure also appearing above the water as snow began to fall from the sky. Yu Mujian reversed the copper sword and rested it at his waist. The blade was thick, rounded, and dull-edged, but it glowed with a dim yellow hue. White mist surged toward it, gathering into a swirling, flowing mass. He spoke, "This sword is called Copper Cash. It was forged from copper mined in Yan Mountain, quenched in waters from Pyaming Mountain of the Northern Sea, and tempered with the fires of Mount Situo in Yinghua Prefecture." Li Zijian's sword-like brows lowered slightly as he watched closely, a hint of weight pressing on his heart. "That sword is indeed unusual. I wonder if I can match it." Mount Qingdu is protected by a Foundation Establishment realm formation. No matter how mad he gets, the younger ones should be safe. Pressing his hand against his sword, Li Zijian remained motionless and responded, "The name of my sword is Han Lin." Without warning, Yu Mujian unsheathed his blade. The white mist immediately surged like waves and stretched out over the lake like a curtain. The gleam of frost was like sharp blades as it crackled and hissed with immense power and weight. The white blade flew across the lake. It seemed slow, yet it was incomparably fast. The mist churned the waters into a frenzy and suffocated the hearts of all who felt its pressure. Li Zijian immediately released the technique he had long prepared, Slaughter Jun Kui Light. He pressed 2 fingers together, and dozens of streaks of white energy erupted outward. The shimmering light rippled, transforming into cold snow as fine as pine needles. It was carried on the wind, converging into a single stream that rushed toward the white mist. But Li Zijian wasted no time. The moment he finished casting the spell, he leapt into the air, drawing his slender sword, which flared with a fierce, snow-white radiance. Though the area around him had been swept clean by the impact, flakes of snow began to fall once more. The celestial moon blazed bright for an instant, carving a path through the surging, wave-like white mist. Yu Mujian saw it clearly, excitement flickering in his eyes. He stepped forward and swung his sword once again. Just then, a sudden brilliance lit up the sky above. Blinding light poured down, making Yu Mujian's heart skip a beat. That radiance condensed into white stone bricks that interlocked together to form a massive fortress gate in the air. Who dares trespass? Such gall. The gate towered high, its white stone pillars etched with countless mysterious runes and shamanic curses. A young man in Taoist robes stood atop the structure and shouted in a mix of shock and fury. Yu Mujian had to raise his head and draw his sword. Dazzling light shimmered like a scorching sun within the gate's archway, burning away the white mist and searing the skin on his face. Li Ziming was indeed both startled and enraged. He had been in secluded cultivation for years, well aware of how thin their family had been stretched by Azure Ponsec's conscription, so he occasionally kept watch, and Li Zijian had long prepared methods to summon him if needed. Now, for the first time, Li Zijian's summoning method had awoken him. He had rushed out only to see white mist churning over the lake and a Buddhist cultivator drawing his sword on his younger brother. Fury ignited within him, and a deadly intent surged forth. He mobilized the vast reserves of his Qi without hesitation, unleashing his cultivation without concern for depletion. Each white stone within the radiant origin pass began to glow. The blinding white at its center shone with searing intensity. Yu Mujian, suddenly under attack, remained calm and simply reached out. He pulled a long cloth from his sleeve and gave it a shake in midair. A flurry of golden runes fell out like tadpoles, floating eerily in the air before assembling into a golden barrier that shielded him completely. The techniques of Buddhist cultivators were often difficult to read. Li Ziming couldn't immediately tell if this was a Dharma artifact or a spell. With a single thought, he sent the radiant origin pass crashing downward. Boom! The brilliant white fortress gate slammed down with a thunderous crash. Yu Mujian dodged twice but couldn't evade entirely. The radiant origin pass slammed directly onto the golden barrier. Light and light collided, releasing a hiss of white mist as suppression forces surged. Meanwhile, Li Zijian had already broken free from the white mist. He stirred a swirl of brilliant snow into motion and flicked his long sword upward, sending 3 nimble, cunning streaks of white light into the mist. Yu Mujian had only just managed to resist Li Ziming's radiant pass. The runes on his body rang out with a metallic clang. Only then could he free a hand to withstand the force. Halfway through a spell seal, he had to frown and halt. He swept away the white mist in front of him with his sleeve and caught a streak of flowing light between his fingers. The white sword light writhed violently in his grip, letting out harsh, grating screeches. Before he could react further, his other hand flicked out, capturing another streak. Only then did he have the chance to draw the copper sword at his waist. A surge of white mist burst out, forcing both streaks of light away. The first streak of white light had left a small puncture on the back of his hand, yet Yu Mujian didn't seem to care. He casually wiped it, sealing the bleeding hole with ease. Good. Rather than anger, joy filled his face. His eyes lit up with a mix of surprise and delight at the sword technique. He sighed in admiration. What a marvelous sword technique. What an ingenious method. So free of convention as if it was born from the outer heavens, but you've yet to grasp its true essence. If the creator themselves had wielded it, those 3 streaks of light might have left me spinning helplessly. He continued murmuring in joy, but the strain of the battle was causing the golden glow surrounding him to flicker. The radiant origin pass specialized in suppression and erosion. It was capable of grinding gold to dust in mere moments. Its power was not to be underestimated. Though Li Ziming didn't possess many impressive combat techniques or experience, the cultivation method he used was a solid 5th grade one. When he unleashed his late Foundation Establishment realm cultivation to its fullest, his ability to suppress immortal foundations rivaled even the elite descendants of the 3 sects. Even Yu Mujian had to momentarily rein in his wandering thoughts and showed a hint of surprise. He knew his own limitations. That golden rune barrier was no ordinary spell. It was one of Five-Eyed Temple's top techniques and one he had honed for decades. The spell was normally unshakable by Foundation Establishment realm cultivators, yet it was already buckling after only a few breaths under this pressure. He freed one hand, emitting white light, using it to prop up the radiant origin pass. With the other, he pulled out a golden talisman and began casting, chanting, empty prison case, all sentiments revealed. After chanting the spell, he strained with the hand supporting the radiant origin pass and gave the gate a symbolic jolt. Then he lightly stepped to the side, slipping out from beneath it and appearing 10 steps away. The golden barrier around him brightened swiftly, gradually returning to its full radiance. Yet behind him, snow suddenly began to fall. The snowflakes drifted sideways in unison by an inch, revealing a streak of piercing white brilliance. An icy, radiant sword light streaked through the air, aimed straight at his back. Chapter 763, Sword Cry I. Yu Mujian's eyes widened as he thrust both palms forward, releasing 2 bursts of golden light. But Li Zijian's swordplay was masterful. It was no longer the rigid, orthodox celestial moon slash. His longsword subtly adjusted its angle mid-swing, and the gathered sword light slipped right through the gap between Yu Mujian's hands. The arc of Li Zijian's sword came alive, evading defenses on the fly. Though its power hadn't drastically increased, the threat was now far greater. Caught off guard, the white sword light pierced through Yu Mujian's chin, broke through the roof of his mouth, and nearly split his head open. Still, Yu Mujian reacted swiftly. His copper sword lashed out, forcing Li Zijian back. Off to the side, Li Ziming was startled and quickly redirected the Radiant Origin Pass to suppress him again. Though Li Ziming did not study the sword path, he was awestruck by his younger brother's strike and admired him. Zijian's swordsmanship has already surpassed second uncles from back then. Now that brother Zijia can no longer focus on the sword, no one in the family aside from the two ancestral lines can compare. Yu Mujian was prepared this time. He formed a seal and narrowly avoided the Radiant Origin Pass's suppression, retreating quickly. His eyes gleamed as he spoke softly. "I truly underestimated you." The sword light still shimmered along his chin and only showed signs of healing after some time. He gathered Dharma light in his hands again, for that vexing Radiant Origin Pass had come crashing down once more. Yu Mujian had no choice but to defend, growing increasingly irritated. Suppressed by the Radiant Pass, Yu Mujian had lost the initiative and suffered repeated attacks from the two. Knowing this wouldn't do, he finally dodged the massive gate and immediately cast a spell, flicking out 3 drops of golden tear-like essence. The 3 golden drops rolled and drifted through the air before transforming into 3 figures, each wielding a copper sword. They darted off in a different direction. Having fought countless battles across the north, he knew well that suppression spells and Dharma artifacts were weakest against concealment and doppelgangers. Maneuvering between them could waste endless time, so he hid his real body among the illusions, silently adjusting his breath and preparing to strike. Just as the spell was cast, Li Zijian sheathed his sword. His eyes lit up with a snow-bright gleam. The effects of radiant snow pine ridge combined with spirit eye perception allowed him to see through the illusion in an instant. His spiritual sense stirred, and he transmitted a thought upper left. Li Ziming understood instantly and activated the Radiant Origin Pass, slamming it straight down on the target. Yu Mujian was forced to summon his golden shield once again as the gate bore down on him. When his eyes met Li Zijian's bright, piercing gaze, his chest tightened involuntarily. This Li Zijian's eye technique is no simple art. Yu Mujian had only managed to unleash one strike before being pinned down by the Radiant Origin Pass again. The radiant light gleamed brilliantly, and its grinding suppression was overwhelming. If he had a pinpoint technique, it might help, but his copper sword was built for brute force. He thought bitterly, this bright Yang generation. He must have formed an immortal foundation based on some divine spell. Its grade is by no means low. If it were any ordinary Foundation Establishment realm cultivator, they would have long been ground to dust. Meanwhile, Li Ziming had begun to grasp the rhythm of Yu Mujian's movements and spellcasting intervals. Becoming more proficient by the moment, Li Zijian continued to cast his QE light technique, drawing his sword to unleash streaks of light that constantly interrupted Yu Mujian's attempts to escape. Though the two brothers rarely fought together, Li Zijian had a flawless sense of timing. He always exploited the openings Li Ziming left perfectly, leaving Yu Mujian fuming. White mist was surging from his body, and his face flushed red. Yu Mujian hovered in the air for 2 seconds before the Radiant Origin Pass pressed down again. The bright white gate sparkled brilliantly and finally pinned him in place. Yu Mujian's expression darkened further as dazzling light poured down around him. Li Ziming now sat firmly atop the gate, cross-legged, eyes shut tight and hands sealed in a mudra as he focused wholly on suppression. Beside him, Li Zijian stood in white robes, sword slung across his back. He had 2 fingers pressed together as he formed seals and cast spells. Mount Qingdu's spiritual energy shifted violently. 10 streaks of icy light shot upward, creating a deep blue barrier that cascaded from the sky. Morning mist. Li Zijian gently formed another seal. A thick gray mist rose over the lake, rapidly spreading and cutting off spiritual sense. Tendrils started to drift toward Yu Mujian. Li Zijian had invited him to fight at the lake with a plan in mind. Liu Changdi's heaven-guarding formation of 5 waters had been prepared long ago but had never been activated. He had saved for this moment to destroy Yu Mujian in one blow. His hands cycled rapidly through seals. Serpent stream pure essence grounded. His killing intent surged. Countless serpentine water beasts, condensed from mana, leaped from the lake, their gray-green light flickering. The ground beneath Yu Mujian's feet seemed to sink, and the Radiant Origin Pass pressed down harder, making escape feel impossible. Yu Mujian's expression grew increasingly grim. He now realized he had completely underestimated them. I thought Li Ziming was just an ordinary Foundation Establishment realm cultivator. I underestimated this suppression technique. And now, I've fallen for Li Zijian's scheme and walked straight into a formation. If I don't bring out my real power, I'm in real trouble. He sat cross-legged in midair. He formed a lotus seal before his chest as golden runes barely held around him. Golden patterns rose along his face. His eyes sparkled, releasing twin beams of dazzling golden light as he solemnly chanted. Suxikang bestowed the true form through empowerment, illuminating Vajra and Womb realms. Su Mu has attained it and today beseeches to embody it. I command. He chanted rapidly, but each word was solemn and forceful. The spell he uttered transformed his eyes into a brilliant gold. He extended both arms forward as his back arched and flesh pulled away, revealing 2 more golden arms. By command, I attain the true form of Suxikang. The upper half of his robes exploded open, revealing a muscular torso. Golden light shone from each side of his chest. 2 more eyes opened coldly and stared ahead. The long strip of cloth that had once unfurled golden runes now wrapped itself around his waist, slowly turning to gold itself. Yu Mujian's 4 eyes all focused forward. His rear 2 arms shot upward, veins of gold flaring as they pushed the radiant origin pass away. His other 2 arms gripped his sword and pointed it directly at Li Zijian. Li Zijian's expression gradually turned grave. He slowly drew his sword back and braced himself. Su Mu is, after all, a master monk seated beside the 5-eyed merciful one. He's bound to have hidden cards. Buddhist cultivators often rely on borrowed power from each other. Judging by this appearance, he's drawing on external force. Yu Mujian had fully manifested the true form of Suxikang. His hair and beard had vanished, and he now resembled a golden-bodied arhat. His eyes gleamed like molten gold as golden lacquer covering his eyelids and face. He thundered, voice like crackling thunder. Ha! The cry echoed like dragons roaring and tigers howling, stirring mountains and seas. Both Li Ziming and Li Zijian staggered. Yu Mujian forcefully pushed with both hands, blasting white mist from his mouth as he shoved the radiant origin pass away. White mist and golden light entwined, his gaze sharp and blazing. He said, "Draw your sword." He had placed his copper sword at his waist. All 4 hands now gripped the hilt and drew it inch by inch, releasing a narrow stream of golden light. A fierce sword aura erupted, intertwining with the runes on his body and stirring the lake into waves. So all this time, despite the intense battle, his copper sword had never truly left its sheath. It had been so seamlessly forged with the scabbard that no one had noticed. No wonder every swing carried immense weight but lacked sharpness. It was a concealed blade all along, thought Li Zijian. Yu Mujian's expression was ice cold, the golden light on his body blazing like fire as it flowed into his sword. He paid no heed to the radiant origin path descending again and said deeply, "I have entered Buddhism and severed ties with the Yu family. This sword is for severing worldly attachments to return a favor once shown by a senior. A sword that was concealed for years. Today it shall move." His eyes grew even brighter as he slowly drew the sword. Li Zijian stood still in midair, tightly gripping his own hilt. The final formation of the heaven-guarding formation of 5 waters, the layered flow, emerged. Deep blue water surged and gradually surrounded him. Provoked by Yu Mujian's sword aura, Hanlin Li Zijian's sword was already eager for battle. It let out a sharp screech as it vibrated in his hand. Li Zijian stared quietly down at his foe. He swallowed a pill and said nothing. Chapter 764, Sword Cry II. The grand formations atop Mount Qingdu and nearby peaks flared to life, some bright, some dim, but their lights weaved together to release waves of energy. Li Ziming felt as if blades were cutting across his face, but with Yu Mujian's sword aimed straight at his brother, how could he back down? He steeled himself, reversed his mana, and caused the radiant origin path to erupt in brilliance as it descended with increasing force. Clang! Golden light exploded skyward, dispersing clouds and mist. The radiant origin pass rang with a sharp sound as the radiance at its center pulsed once, then dimmed. A tidal eruption of golden sword chi burst forth from within the gate, like mountains collapsing and seas roaring. Boom! The sword chi howled through the center, causing the plaque atop the gate to tremble violently. Cracks spread across the stone bricks, and the entire gate dimmed, shrinking into a single stream of light that shot back toward Li Ziming. The radiant origin pass had been harmed. Li Ziming coughed up a mouthful of blood, mingled gold and red. But before the blood even hit the lake, it transformed into golden streaks of light and scattered. He had no time to worry about his injuries. He immediately pulled out talismans and sent them flying to chase after the escaping light. Li Zijian poured all his cultivation into his sword. The lake beneath his feet had frozen into solid ice. His pupils reflected only the golden sword aura. This was the culmination of the golden Arhat Suxikang's lifetime of sword cultivation. He felt the talisman seeds in his chi stir and erupt with pure chi. His mind grew sharper than ever before. Countless profound meanings surfaced in his heart, and his consciousness seemed to fall into a mirror, where he beheld a green sword resting on stone. A man in a bright white robe stood alone atop an ancient, weathered city. His features were radiant and transcendent. A sky-darkening fire phoenix streaked through the heavens like a comet. The man calmly drew his sword, and a wave of cyan-white iridescence burst forth. That cyan-white sword image gradually appeared in Li Zijian's eyes. He sheathed his sword with his pale and glowing hand. He summoned another. Clang! A sharp screech rang out as a cyan-white sword burst forth from the mountains and soared through the air to land in his hand. The sword tassel swayed in the wind. It was the Kinch sword. The moon-white sword light lit up once more, and the gleam across the lake suddenly dimmed. Golden light erupted from several miles away, accompanied by the rumble of collapsing stone. Yu Mujian stood in midair, staring blankly. Li Zijian stood silently opposite him. Yu Mujian slowly lowered his sword. After standing for 2 seconds, his expression shifted and he abruptly said, "I have no regrets." Countless cracks spread across his face as the words left his mouth. His body held together for a single moment before shattering into countless fragments that scattered across the sky. The fragments turned to streams of light that turned into ash that drifted down like settling mist. The dim yellow copper cache lost its radiance. It dropped, split into 2 pieces, and after half a spin, sank swiftly into the lake below. Li Ziming sensed Li Zijian's flickering and unstable qi. Without time to hesitate, he rushed to his side, only to see wind and snow churning as blood trailed from Li Zijian's lips. He quickly supported Li Zijian into the mountains. It was only when he fed Li Zijian a Wanglin blossom that his complexion began to shift for the better. A faint red line ran across his waist. He had clearly been pierced by sword qi. Blood still rising in his throat, Li Zijian rasped, "Earthview Bloodstone." Li Ziming hastily took out the blood-glowing jade stone from his storage pouch and handed it to Li Zijian. Li Zijian used his palm like a blade and sliced off a small portion. He then tore his own abdomen open. His internal organs were broken and mangled. He placed the bloodstone inside, pressed his palms together, and spat out a mouthful of black blood which pierced the jade with dozens of tiny holes. After panting for a few moments, life gradually returned to Li Zijian's face. He asked, "Is Yu Mujian dead?" Li Ziming took half a second before realizing he needed to respond. At the very least, that physical body should be dead. His face was drenched in sweat as he hastily asked, "How are you?" "I should be fine with the Earthview Bloodstone." Li Zijian's face was pale as paper. He leaned against a green boulder, using his mana to bind his fragmented organs together, yet his eyes were shockingly bright, and he smiled. Ziming, there should still be a sword immortal's remnant or inheritance hidden within the Kinch sword. Inheritance, whatever, just stop talking first. Li Ziming had no mind to listen to any more. He rummaged through his storage pouch and piled out several pills, muttering, "Every time I emerge from closed-door cultivation, something has already gone wrong at home. I've been feeling uneasy for days. Focus on your recovery." Li Zijian nodded, took a few pills, and sat down cross-legged, closing his eyes to heal. After more than 10 seconds, Li Xuanxun came rushing over, calling out, "Ziming, Zijian, are you both all right? Still holding on?" Li Ziming quickly replied, then gradually regained his calm. He followed Li Xuanxun out to reassure him and noticed the elder holding 2 broken halves of the copper sword. Copper cache was still dripping wet from the lake. The fracture was smooth as a Zu State Great Void. Golden clouds swirled auspiciously within the pitch-black great void, white mist curling around them. A massive golden figure sat upright at its center. The figure had 3 heads, 6 arms, and countless faces. The golden lacquer adorning it shimmered as it was surrounded by murmuring Sanskrit chants. Many merciful ones stood beneath the golden lotus-like clouds, only a tenth the size of the golden figure. Their expressions varied, with some glaring in fury while others were as cold as frost. However, they were all holding blades, spears, axes, or halberds. All the merciful ones stood frozen, their lotus-formed hands motionless in the golden mist. Their sacred weapons shimmered coldly, drawing the eye irresistibly toward them. Suddenly, a merciful one opened its eyes, 3 on its face and 2 more on its chest. They were all glaring wide with faint anger flickering within them. Its arms, arranged in a lotus posture, dropped swiftly as it began divining with measured movements. Su Mu is dead. He felt a flicker of anger. Su Mu had been one of the few successful converts. He had been an exceptional manifestation of the true form of Suxikong in the way of emptiness, a true Arhat he could rely on, and that was only part of it. Su Mu also possessed a profound swordsmanship. He was a cultivator from Jiangnan, and likely at the sword essence realm. He had been the perfect pawn. Yet now he had died so suddenly, and uselessly after being sent south to sever his past. That Li family, they possess enough power to prevent even the true form of Suxikong from reincarnating. The 5-eyed merciful one's 3 facial eyes flared with fury, while the 2 on his chest remained icy cold. The Lotus Dharma artifacts on either side descended from above his head to his sides. After a brief moment, he murmured inwardly, "The few Golden Core Realm cultivators of Jiangnan have already departed for the outer heavens. This was not interference. This is the perfect moment to divine fate. Maha is also nearby. I must see what kind of mandate of heaven this person carries. Ideally, I can take him for myself." His regret slightly eased, golden patterns began to form across his face. His 5 eyes slowly closed as he began calculating with folded fingers. Chapter 765, Great Supreme Chan I. The five-eyed merciful one twisted his fingers to seize Su Mu's fate and calculate. His vision turned hazy, and soon a great lake emerged before him. The rippling blue waters of the lake formed the outline of a crescent moon. Towering peaks surrounded the lake. The islets within were either sealed by thunder or lush with verdant grass. The scenery was as tranquil and clear as moonlight. He studied it carefully and thought to himself, this should be Moongay's Marsh, one of the ancient 7 lakes and 4 marshes. Now it's merely Moongay's Lake. The water mansion of the 5 water virtues, the authority over lakes and marshes, no longer manifests, and thus it has declined to this state. As he continued his deductions, he suddenly caught sight of a young man in white. The youth had sword-like brows and starry eyes, while his body was cloaked in frost and snow. In his hand a green-white sword radiated a piercing light. Just then, a voice called out by his ear, Li Zijian. The five-eyed merciful one studied his face. His heart stirred as his eyes burned with desire. He then revealed a look of joy. This is good. A face as if carved, his brow cold and sharp, his heart pure and bones of ice. Adept at severing mortal ties, he's cold as winter snow and utterly merciless. He suits my way of emptiness even more than Su Mu. I lost a copper sword, yet gained a blade of frost. His heart surged with joy, thoroughly satisfied, and to think this man killed one of my arhats. To kill and create, karma is the greatest kind of karmic link. I don't even need to go through great lengths to sever his fate and convert him. There's already cause for him to fall into my hands. The merciful one scattered the divination, formed hand seals, and chanted incantations. Radiant light burst forth from the back of his head as he observed carefully from the great void. He reached into his robes with a golden lacquered arm and retrieved a small copper sword. The copper sword had already snapped in two. Holding it in his palm, he began to chant, "In this place, the first boundless life is born of the great void. The five-eyed one seeks the cause of the broken sword, to fulfill the fruit of my Tao lineage, and bring salvation to all beings." Golden light shone from the merciful one's face as his eyes grew hazy. Soon, Li Zijian's face appeared before him, and he couldn't help but nod slowly, to divine him so easily. Indeed, someone with no background or entanglements. Good. The five-eyed merciful one was a seasoned and ancient being, and had attempted reincarnation twice already. His divination art stemmed from the extremely effective prophetic techniques of the late Zhou dynasty, but if one miscalculated when it came to a true monarch, it could very well cost one's life. He was experienced enough to be well aware of the taboos. First, he used Su Mu to calculate the fate of the Yu family, then conducted further deduction at Moongay's Lake. Aside from Li Tongya, who had killed a Maha and whose parents' fate remained obscure, the rest of the Li family were ordinary enough that drawing their names revealed their faces. Then there is no need to worry. Thought the five-eyed merciful one, the youth's complexion was pale, and his eyes were tightly shut. He must have suffered greatly at Su Mu's hands. The merciful one found this entirely reasonable, and the finger that had rested on his middle digit gently lifted. Rumble. The merciful one felt like the heavens themselves had collapsed beside his ears. A burst of golden white sparks exploded before his eyes, sending pain slicing through his heart like a drill. In the span of a single held breath, the back of his head turned icy cold, as though a pair of massive hands had reached into his soul and forcefully yanked it upward. Whoa, once again he felt both spirit and flesh shatter. Something misty spilled down his face, leaving his limbs limp. His soul seemed to fly from his body, yet also felt trapped within. Hallucinations flickered before his eyes, alternating between light and dark, and then he lost all consciousness. Within the mirror's world, they've finally arrived. Lu Jiangxian materialized in midair like mist. The azure sword in his hand let out a faint cry, easing the tension in his heart. Kai Buzi and the Water Mansion immortal official had obtained numerous Foundation establishment realm techniques, many of which included spell arts. For instance, Li Zijian's Dondu gathering technique came with 6 supplementary spells, 3 secret techniques, as well as a footwork technique, escape spell, and other spell types. There was everything one could need. He had originally been revising these one by one within the mirror world. Azure Pond had many techniques and spell arts, so modifying the techniques was simple enough. Remove the head and tail, repackage them, and they could be granted freely. But the spell arts were far more conspicuous, since most had been created by Azure Pond sect and had its own distinct personal flair. Some were even famous. One glance was all it would take to recognize them. He had no choice but to select a few spell arts of suitable grade, cross-reference them, and make careful edits. Although he had seen countless techniques and spell arts, writing them wasn't something that could be done in a day. Who would have thought that barely any time would pass before a Buddhist cultivator attacked the Li family? Su Mu, or rather Yu Mujian, did not have particularly high sword cultivation, but he had a unique mindset. Clinging to a single phrase Li Tongya once spoke, he had hidden that sword strike for decades. When it was finally unleashed, it bore all the sharpness and killing intent of a true killer blow. In that instant, its power had nearly rivaled Li Xuanfeng's full-force attack, reaching the pinnacle of the Foundation Establishment realm. Though several Golden Core realm cultivators had gone to the outer heavens, they were all too familiar with the methods of Taoist masters and true monarchs. This could very well be bait to lure the snake from its den. Lu Zhongxian didn't believe for a moment that no one from Yue State was watching him. It would be best not to use the Supreme Yin Profound Light if possible. So he fully activated the Profound Pearl Talisman Seed, calming Li Zijian's mind to a state of perfect clarity. Then, by combining it with the azure sword left behind by Li Qijing, he achieved a state akin to possession, allowing the youth to comprehend and wield the sword. This is the lowest risk method I could come up with. Were it not for the immortal art he possessed, he would never have been able to make it look so seamless. After all, this was only a minor move at the Foundation Establishment realm, an inspiration-born sword strike that left no trace. Li Zijian also carried a talisman seed within him, which theoretically should have concealed anything unusual. Since everything seemed under control, Lu Zhongxian had paused his work to assist. But the Merciful One's divinations had begun tracing their way back, testing each step cautiously. Lu Zhongxian watched coldly and thought, even the Jinlian Maha back then couldn't detect anything wrong. What can a mere little Merciful One possibly see? Sure enough, a few seconds later, the five-eyed Merciful One boldly began his divinations. Lu Zhongxian's heart stirred, and an idea struck him. He rapped the table, and an endless white jade palace from years past appeared before him. Now the intricate incantations etched around the hall were no longer mere decorative script, but true spellforms calculated using metallic essence and immortal arts. They were enough to mesmerize any who laid eyes on them. Even his immortal seat was different. It had been remodeled from an altar. It was majestic and imposing as it stood high above the ground. Below it, endless white mist poured forth, forming countless shifting shapes. This white mist had come from years of observing Purple Mansion realm breakthroughs and Golden Core realm cultivators battle. Combined with immortal arts, it truly contained the wondrous nature of metallic essence. Even a true monarch might be stunned upon seeing it. After arranging everything with care, he sat calmly upon the throne and brought the five-eyed Merciful One before the hall as a radiant light bloomed upon his face. Chapter 766, Great Supreme Chan, II. The five-eyed Merciful One slowly regained consciousness. The first thing that entered his vision was a radiant white surface. It was smooth and crystal clear, though bright white patterns could be seen through the pale layer. Just one glance made his head spin. The terror in his heart only rose as he gradually came to his senses. He dared not lift his head and simply stared at the white mist curling around his legs. His heart felt frozen, and the chill was not helping his dizziness. His teeth chattered as he muttered, "It's over. I've provoked someone far beyond me." Hearing no movement, the Merciful One slowly raised his head and his heart nearly burst from terror. A vast, boundless hall stretched before him. Pristine jade pillars soared into the clouds, and at the highest point sat a man clad in white. His face radiated dazzling light, so white and brilliant that the Merciful One winced in pain. His garments exuded celestial grace as he leaned upon a lofty jade immortal seat. The light cascading from him transformed into the myriad forms of lifelike and vivid sentient beings once the rays hit the ground. This. His eyes felt like they were on the verge of bleeding, and upon seeing the immortal seat soaring into the heavens, his heart went hollow. Only one thought remained in his mind, an immortal. Lu Zhongxian gazed at the five-eyed Merciful One on the ground. He rested one hand gently on the jade seat, composed and unhurried. This was the second time someone had divined his true form, but he was no longer the Lu Zhongxian of the past. He had risen far above that. Moreover, what stood before him now wasn't the Maha Jinlian who briefly could trap him, but merely a Merciful One of the Way of Emptiness. He was no better than a fish slab falling into his hand. He gestured discreetly, and a golden radiance bloomed in his palm. Morning mist churned and thoughts flickered within it. Bit by bit, the Merciful One's memories surfaced, each idea from his mind laid bare. "I'll just wait and watch," thought the Merciful One. Lu Zhongxian remained silent, as if cultivating in seclusion. The Merciful One trembled on the floor for a moment, his terror far beyond its limit. When he looked up, he was struck again by the blinding brilliance of the immortal seat above. It was vast and overwhelming, so he could only lower his gaze to the floor again. He squirmed on the ground for a moment, legs pressed together as he slowly scooted backward, yet the hall held no other scenery aside from the radiance. It was so still that there was not a sound to be heard. He felt like he had moved for a long time, then he glanced around. Nothing had changed in any direction. He was still kneeling in the exact same spot. Putting on a full display of fear and dread, the Merciful One could only say in a sorrowful tone, "This humble cultivator greets the exalted immortal. I have sullied the immortal hall through my intrusion, and am stricken with shame and dread." At last, a cool and indifferent voice descended from above, echoing through the hall. "What era is this now?" That one line sent thunder through the Merciful One's heart, and he immediately concluded, "He's not searching my soul. That must mean he's a righteous immortal." and to ask about the state of the world. He must be an immortal from before the heavenly upheaval. Such divine power, yet ignorance of worldly affairs, there must be a flaw. Most likely, he has been sealed in this hall. That's the only reason for such a question. He spoke in a low voice, reporting to the exalted immortal. The Wei dynasty has been gone for over 1700 years. A pause of silence from above, then another question followed. Where is Li Qianyuan? The merciful one felt a chill run down his spine. Trembling, he replied, the great ancestor of Wei has long since fallen. In Mount Luoxia, a true monarch stands just a step away from attaining the bright yang fruition. Lu Jiangxian glanced at his palm. The memory was already half recovered. He asked again, offhandedly, I see the fruition attainments of old left hanging. Do you know where they've all gone? The merciful one was stunned by the question. Understanding dawned, and he thought, I've heard that even Dharma masters cannot perceive whether the fruition attainments are occupied. He must be an immortal beyond doubt. He kowtowed repeatedly, replying aloud, this humble one has managed to live a little longer thanks to the art of reincarnation, over 700 years now. In my youth, I lived during the reign of Fu Qian and heard many tales from that time. The five-eyed merciful one continued quickly, this humble one's knowledge is shallow, but back then. I heard that among the ancient merging techniques, the Yue cultivating inheritance was seized by true monarch Taiyu when Liang state fell and Zhao state rose. The Jade true figure relinquished their fruition attainment and departed, while the whole pill master was severely wounded and slain by Dongfeng Weiming and Dongfeng Weixi. As for the rest of the major events, I truly do not know. He trembled as he finished speaking. Lu Jiangxian listened attentively before casually asking, what of the Buddhist Tao now? At last, this touched upon the merciful one's expertise. He let out a long breath of relief and answered respectfully, exalted immortal. The Buddhist Tao has long been fractured ever since Suxikang and Shijiali, the last two revered ones, parted ways after a failed discourse, each leaving the realm. It is now divided into 7 Taos. They are emptiness, virtuous, wrath, great desire, discipline, compassion, and Dharma realm. With the exception of the way of wrath, which was plotted against before and after, resulting in the Dharma master failing to respond and all Mahas perishing. The rest still have Dharma masters holding the line. Lu Jiangxian listened in silence as the merciful one gave him a general sense of the northern Buddhist sect's current strength. He asked softly, how many revered ones? The five-eyed merciful one lay prostrate on the ground, racking his brains. He rehearsed his words like lightning in his mind, repeatedly and with care, before answering with a trembling voice, it is said, that one still responds. As soon as he spoke, the mist and radiance before him began to surge and shift, manifesting various forms. A voice drifted down, their title. The merciful one's lips quivered as if waging an internal battle. His mouth moved repeatedly before he finally replied, Great Supreme Chan, Celestial Icaria. He dared not pronounce the full name, deliberately pausing in the middle. After finishing, his voice trembled uncontrollably, and he lay flat on the white tiles like a tiny, helpless ant. From above, a voice slowly drifted down, oh. Though faintly surprised, the tone carried a trace of inquiry, and it stirred endless speculation in the merciful one's heart. Though he dared not dwell on it, a thrill surged through him, as though he had glimpsed some ancient secret that made his legs tremble. Why respond this way? Why such a reply? Could it be that the great Supreme Chan attained the revered one's seat by? At that thought, a sudden shiver ran through him. Terrified, he dared not think further, and the immortal above him remained silent. The golden radiance in Lu Jiangxian's hand had reached its fullness, and he now held the merciful one's complete memory. There was no need for further questions. The question now is how to deal with him. He pondered for a moment. Below, the merciful one's heart was in utter chaos. He opened his mouth to beg for mercy, only to find he could no longer speak. All he could do was kowtow furiously, slamming his head into the ground like he was pounding garlic. Lu Jiangxian watched quietly as he calculated, this merciful one's physical body still resides in the great void. If I kill him outright under the eyes of many, a single divination about his sudden death might reveal traces. Perhaps even a true monarch or a Dharma master is observing. At the same time, wiping his memory would be far too lenient. The grand hall echoed with the sound of desperate kowtowing. Lu Jiangxian watched for a while, feeling somewhat like a man with tasteless food he couldn't bring himself to throw away. He thought one mere merciful one, and one who served near a Maha at that. If anything goes awry, it'll be noticed instantly. Any backup plans will be useless, leaving nothing but a trail of clues. He waited a moment longer as he continued to speculate. What's more, from the Buddhist cultivator's perspective, Su Mu died at Li Zijian's hand. It'd be strange indeed if this merciful one let him go so easily. Li Zijian walking away unscathed is suspicious in itself. He paused, considering quietly. Either he dies swiftly and without a trace, or he must become utterly obedient. Lu Jiangxian glanced calmly around. His tone turned colder as he spoke softly, five-eyed. The merciful one instantly felt his lips and tongue unseal. Overwhelmed with joy and tears, he cried out in misery, exalted immortal. Lu Jiangxian's voice was low and haunting as he murmured, I have dwelled in this hall for many years. Though you are a heretical outcast, you may yet be of use. The Merciful One kowtowed in terror. I shall act solely on the exalted immortal's command. Chapter 767 Ziui Commands. The five-eyed Merciful One trembled uncontrollably as the voice above him spoke coldly. Such audacity. The five-eyed Merciful One frantically kowtowed and cried out in terror, I understand. I understand. Your Excellency's immortal merit is vast and boundless, your fate divinely ordained. I am merely a lowly cultivator, my fortune bleak and my path astray. Only by a twist of fate was I granted the chance to glimpse your visage. Now that I have seen your Excellency, my life is no longer mine. I understand. It is as though all the honored ones have arrived together. To behold an immortal's face and die on the spot, such is the way. I can only offer my absolute obedience from now on. The five-eyed Merciful One continued in a sorrowful voice, I am willing to repay all the karma I have created in the mortal realm with my body. Let me suffer the burning of countless karmic flames. I only wish to shed this impure body and enter your service, as a mere Taoist child in your grotto heaven, a humble clerk in your realm of law. His voice and expression were both mournful, spiritual tears brimming in his eyes. Lu Jiangxian could not help but sigh with admiration, truly worthy of being called the Merciful One and a Buddhist cultivator. What a silver tongue he has. His voice was soft as it echoed in the air, completely ignoring the torrent of words from the five-eyed Merciful One. I left a chess piece in the mortal world, yet you meddled with unnecessary hands and feet. If you leave even a trace in the future, I will do far more than simply burn you with karmic fire. The five-eyed Merciful One realized the crucial moment had arrived. He could only wish he could rip out his own heart to prove his sincerity as he cried out, Exalted Immortal, Exalted Immortal, I still have some tricks left. I will see to it that this matter is handled perfectly. I swear you will not need to worry in the slightest. Should anything go awry, I will accept the deepest pain and torment and never again be reborn. But unexpectedly, a beam of radiant light descended from above, piercing straight into his mind. The voice of the white-robed immortal overhead echoed ethereally, Today's oath shall bind your very soul. Lustrous light flowed in Lu Jiangxian's hand as bright yang essence flickered. The five-eyed Merciful One dissipated before him like smoke on the breeze. The pale moon-colored palace gradually faded, and the dark sky returned once more. The memories of the five-eyed Merciful One flowed into him, and Lu Jiangxian examined them carefully, twice. The five-eyed Merciful One's mortal surname was Zio. He had once been a minor cultivator in the northern Taifo state who practiced a devil technique. Back then, the Merciful One had served the Hellion family as a retainer under the rule of Emperor Zhewu, Fuqian. That Fuqian was quite the enlightened ruler. Under his reign, the Taoist, Devil, and Buddhist Taos coexisted in balance, each flourishing in its own right with a place to thrive, muttered Lu Jiangxian. The five-eyed Merciful One had broken through to the Foundation establishment realm during Fuqian's reign. He remembered the sky dimming and the heavens running red with blood. Trees and stones wept along the roads, and the people were filled with dread. The old ancestor of the Hellion family had barely shown himself before something snatched him away, leaving only a terrified and panicked scream behind. The Merciful One hid underground for 3 months. When he finally emerged, he learned that Emperor Zhewu, Fuqian, had perished in Yincheng Prefecture. The Crown Prince, Fuqidengel, had ascended the throne and welcomed 7 sacred statues into the capital. The Merciful One was then constantly hunted because of his identity as a devil cultivator and nearly lost his life. He quickly abandoned his Tao lineage and switched to the Tao of the Buddhist cultivator. Unexpectedly, his nature suited this Tao perfectly, and he gradually rose to the position of the Merciful One. The man valued his life above all else. Even after becoming a master monk with numerous reincarnation techniques, he rarely left the north, doing as he pleased within the confines of his five-eyed temple. He had 700 years of memories, yet 400 were spent in indulgence and pleasure. One day, on a whim, he decided to travel south. But as soon as he reached Su State in Jiangbei, he happened to run into Duan Muqiu, who had come to Jiangbei in search of something and had once encountered an immortal. When he saw that Duan Muqiu was only in the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm, while he was already the Merciful One, he laughed 3 times in scorn. He never expected Duan Muqiu to strike him down with a single book, reducing his body to pulp and completely destroying his Merciful One vessel. From that day on, he never dared cross the river again. 700 years of cultivation. Most of the Merciful One's memories were of Buddhist cultivator methods. But having cultivated for 7 centuries, he had studied both devil techniques and immortal techniques. The devil techniques needed no elaboration, while the immortal techniques were mostly ancient methods. Lu Jiangxian skimmed through them. The boundary between devil and immortal arts was unclear during the transitions between the Liang and Zhao dynasties. Techniques of the Purple Mansion realm and Golden Core realm Dao often had all sorts of dual cultivation and consumption methods appended to them. No wonder the Five-Eyed Merciful One classified the Purple Mansion realm and Golden Core realm Dao under devil cultivation as well. He quickly changed focus and examined things more closely. There were 3 other celestial phenomena in the Merciful One's memories similar to the fall of Emperor Jehu, a true monarch figure, not to mention several other suspected instances. The other 3 all occurred within the 200 years between 700 and 500 years ago. Lu Jiangxian took silent note of it as he began to secretly observe the phenomena unfolding within the Great Void, using the backdoor left within the Merciful One's soul. The Five-Eyed Merciful One awoke in a daze from the Great Void, his hand seal only halfway formed. It felt as if merely a second had passed, yet he felt as though he had lived through another lifetime. Golden light sparkled and lotus flowers descended before him. For a brief moment he was stunned, but when he felt the faintly smoldering mana deep within his soul, he realized that everything just now hadn't been an illusion. A deep bitterness welled up within his heart. What's the matter? The red-skinned, green-eyed Merciful One beside him asked casually, though his tone was laced with mockery. Lord Five-Eyed suddenly awakens, so surely fate has stirred, and you've stumbled upon some great opportunity. Come now, tell us all about it. Though the other Merciful Ones remained perfectly still, each holding their Dharma artifact like a dense forest of statues, the Five-Eyed Merciful One knew that his brief pause had not gone unnoticed. They were all watching him. What frightened him more was the Maha known as Zhelu, seated in the Great Void behind him. Though Zhelu was currently observing Su's state through a form of 1,000 eyes, should anything unusual occur, the Maha would surely turn his gaze, and that would make his situation far worse. But he remained calm in the face of danger, pretending to hurriedly stow away his small copper sword. As expected, the red-skinned, green-eyed Merciful One laughed heartily and mocked, "So it turns out your Arhat died." But as soon as those words were spoken, he silently praised the move. Indeed, most of the prying gazes immediately retreated in boredom. The Five-Eyed Merciful One merely responded coldly, "Chilu, what concern is it of yours?" The Merciful One Chilu's Dharma ground was adjacent to the Five-Eyed Temple, and the two had always been at odds. They had clashed many times in the past, and the Five-Eyed Merciful One had long resented him. But now, for the first time, he found the fellow useful and deliberately put on a tough but fearful expression. Sure enough, Chilu laughed. "Your Arhat must have died in Jiangnan, eh?" Not even waiting for a reply, he added, "Dunmu Kui has long been dead, and yet you're still cowering like this. What a disgrace to the way of emptiness. That Lord Zhelu would even keep a useless thing like you under his command. If I had been there, I would have bashed that barbarian's skull in. Not good." His heart cried out in bitter alarm. As expected, the moment Zhelu's name was mentioned, an eye slowly turned toward them from behind. It stared at the two, and a voice like a ghostly whisper said, "Enough of this noise. A guest is arriving." The Five-Eyed Merciful One let out a breath of relief and thought to himself, "As expected, the Immortal's methods are supreme. My very fate has been handed over to Maha, and my soul has been branded, yet he remains completely unaware. This must be Golden Core Realm technique at least." But just as he pondered, 100 beams of golden light rose up ahead. A lotus dais floated into the air, atop which sat a child of 5 or 6 years old. The child was delicate and exquisitely carved like jade, brimming with charm. A golden temple hovered behind him, and waterfalls of incense and smoke cascaded gently, flowing with grace and beauty. A minor cultivator below immediately cried out, respectfully welcoming the arrival of the merciful, virtuous, worldly way of the Lotus, Maha Jinlian of the Lotus Temple. The one from the way of virtuous has arrived. The thought flashed through the minds of all the Merciful Ones. Then they heard the child's voice echo lightly through the air as he called out, "Zhelu, someone from the Chuoba family has arrived." Chapter 768, Ziaui, Baixiang Valley. Li Zijai had cultivated for half a year in peace. As winter gradually set in and snow began to fall, the mountain forests turned into a sea of white. This place held a different kind of beauty compared to the scenery of Jiangnan, one that brought great peace to the heart. Having stood guard for quite some time, he encountered a period of shifting spiritual energy in the heavens and earth, with flows of heavenly glow coursing through the air. Li Zijai's foundation was already solid, so he consumed a talisman pill and smoothly advanced to the late stage of the foundation establishment realm. The two who had come with him, Yu Yuwei of Panky Peak and Quan Yi of Ling Peak, had also begun to settle in. Yu Yuwei's 2 disciples had arrived, and even Quan Yi, who had once seemed timid and uneasy, had found peace in his cultivation. The group would often gather in the courtyard, chatting while facing the vast snowfall. 2 juniors served tea at the front, while the rest of the valley's cultivators knelt nearby, listening in fascination. They drank wine and discussed minor Taoist matters. It truly felt like a scene of carefree leisure. From time to time, the checkpoints around the valley, managed by the residents, would send someone to report. The Station Foundation establishment realm cultivators brought news, but there were never any major incidents, just a few devil cultivators who had stirred up trouble and fled through the area. Brother Zijai, the middle-aged man Kuan Yi now addressed him as a peer. Though he was slightly older, he no longer dared to act superior. He said, "What a beautiful snowfall this is." Li Zijai had grown familiar with Kuan Yi over the past 6 months. The man had grown up within the sect, was not particularly scheming, and had neither wife nor children. He only had an elderly mother living on his home peak. He had no intention of seeking a Dao companion, nor did he have close friends. The greatest accomplishment in his life had been achieving Foundation establishment realm, and all he wished for now was to protect his mother and let her live out her old age in peace. He had been conscripted here against his will, but after more than half a year, he'd warmed up and even started to smile again. Yu Yue sat nearby, took a sip of wine, and sighed. "Zijai, your family's elder truly is mighty, slaying Murong Wu within the formation." Li Zijai gave a small, amused smile. He had indeed been pleased upon hearing the news. Kuan Yi had bombarded him with questions for a while, but the buzz had faded over the past few months. Only Yu Yue still brought it up frequently, always speaking of it with a trace of nostalgia. Li Zijai nodded slightly, his thoughts drifting to his family on the other side of the mountain. He was silently watching the falling snow, when suddenly he spotted a streak of black light racing in from the south and halting just outside the formation. Li Zijai stood up, and even the usually unbothered Yu Yue grew serious. Then came a call from outside the formation. "Third young master." "Third young master, Wushou is here. I've brought some items." Li Wushou. Li Zijai was a little surprised. Li Wushou was a serpent demon that had been personally subdued by his father, Li Yuanjiao. Naturally, he had seen this creature before. In fact, according to the family law, he was technically Li Wushou's master. Recognizing him at a glance, Li Zijai flew to the edge of the formation and asked softly, "How are things at home? Why did they send you here?" Li Wushou was travel-worn and brushed the snow off his robes to reveal his ever-unchanging black attire. He answered, "Third young master, the checkpoint just repelled a wave of devil cultivators. There were no major issues. However, Lord Qingheng has taken a Dharma artifact to be reforged and asked me to deliver it to you." Li Zijai nodded and observed carefully. Once he confirmed it was indeed Li Wushou, and after inspecting several command tokens, he stepped outside the formation. Li Wushou stared at him for a moment, and a look of envy appeared on his gloomy face as he said, "You've already surpassed me in cultivation, young master. Truly envious I am." Li Zijai used his spiritual sense to double-check it was Li Wushou, and then led him inside the formation, replying, "Though your cultivation advances more slowly, you enjoy great longevity. Each path has its own benefits. There's no need to envy anyone." Li Zijai excused himself from the others in the courtyard and returned to his room with Li Wushou, who pulled a folded fan from his sleeve. The fan was deep, dark blue in color and shaped like a semicircle. It had 12 clean, evenly spaced ribs and emitted a faint, otherworldly glow. Hints of multicolored brilliance flickered across its surface, as if infused with the light of heavenly glow. Li Zijai smiled slightly as he took the fan and studied it carefully. Li Wushou explained, "This was seized by Lady Qingheng after slaying someone from the Hellion family. Originally, it had only 6 ribs. It was a magic weapon, refined using souls and blood essence. It could release a gray demonic wind and perhaps had other uses as well. Later, it was thoroughly remade with the intent of gifting it to you. The blood chi and souls were removed, and it was reforged using cold essence and profound metal. Though its quality dropped a little, it's still a fine piece. It used to be a large fan that could cover half a body. Now, with added ribs and a thicker surface, it's about the size of a person's chest. After much searching, only a bit of heavenly glow treasure could be found, which was then fused into it." After listening attentively, Li Zijai responded gently with a simple, "Good." In his eyes, the artifact was merely average among Foundation establishment realm cultivators, but its meaning was special. So he smiled and said, "Please trouble yourself to pass on my thanks to Aunt. I appreciate her concern." Li Wushou nodded. "I certainly will. If the young master would give it a name, I can report back accordingly." Li Zijai tested it a little. It wasn't as comfortable in hand as a sword, but it had its own unique strengths. It would be useful for repelling, scouting, and capturing spells. He said softly, "Let it be named Ziyu." Li Wushou nodded. Then Li Zijai suddenly recalled something. "When I broke through, Xior had gathered a 6-colored rainbow mist for me. It's still in my storage pouch, but now's the perfect time to take it out, refine it day and night, and fuse it into the fan's surface." As he was still mulling things over, Li Wushou nodded promptly, took out a letter, and handed it to him with a bow, saying, "I shall take my leave now. If I'm away too long and something happens at the checkpoint, I'll end up being blamed." Li Zijai nodded naturally and personally escorted him all the way to the edge of the grand formation. Li Wushou hesitated for a moment, his gloomy face softening slightly as he said, "Now that the old master is gone, I should be by your side, young master, but I've been stationed elsewhere by assignment. Please take care of yourself." This old serpent was usually dour and never held back when cursing others, but over the decades, he had lived a life that the Eastern Sea couldn't compare to, and he remembered the kindness. Li Zijai listened quietly, nodded in reply, and escorted him all the way out of the valley. He hung the Xiaoyu spirit fan at his waist, rode the wind back, and read the letter along the way, gaining a better understanding of the situation in the central regions. Once he returned to the formation, Yu Yue glanced at him and smiled. "Congratulations, Zijai, on acquiring a Dharma artifact." Kuan Yi looked enviously at him. He assumed that the sword on Li Zijai's back was certainly of Foundation Establishment realm, as was his feathered robe and now his treasured fan. He offered a few congratulatory words but sighed inwardly. What a pity that my Quan ancestors missed their chance and went all in with Azure Pond too early. Had we just held some territory and waited to be merged in at least, the Quan family could have stood alongside the Yuan, Yu, or Ning families. Now we're left passing down the name alone, one generation at a time. As he brooded, both Li Zijai and Yu Yue suddenly stiffened, turning simultaneously to look northward. A haze of gray mist had begun to rise, faint and drifting into the air. Kuan Yi's face went pale and he cried out in alarm. The Chuoba family is on the move. Chapter 769, Chuoba Changyuan I. Li Zijai focused his gaze. The mist slowly rose and swept over the snow-white mountain ridges. Thick gray clouds rolled in behind it, mingling pure and turbid energies. Fleeting traces of escape light could be vaguely seen within them. Radiant light surged from his eyes, floating within his pupils and subtly dispersing at the corners. The grayness faded, revealing a lead streak of white energy, followed by 7 black trails. The rest were minor demonic troops, hidden amidst the clouds. The Dawn Dew gathering technique was among the few top-tier, well-structured techniques within the sect. Its only flaw was the difficulty in gathering dew. No news had ever surfaced about its follow-up techniques from Jiangnan, and all fellow cultivators had long given up on it. Thus, few chose to train in it. However, the perception technique it was paired with was highly compatible. So Li Zijai was the first among the 3 to see things clearly, and he sighed inwardly. Kuan Yi counted them one by one, his face pale as he replied, "There are actually this many of them." Yu Yue looked on grimly, then studied Kuan Yi closely before gently reassuring him. "Fellow Taoist Quan, even the Purple Mansion realm Maha of the Great Void are watching. One military force facing off against one pass is like a game of Go, where each move is carefully calculated. They surely won't allow the enemy to concentrate forces and strike this valley all at once." Yu Yue, after all, was a seasoned cultivator. Normally, he wouldn't speak such blunt truths that might draw trouble, but when he saw the enemy right before them and Kuan Yi still wavering, he had no choice but to explain the stakes and steady his resolve. Sure enough, after a few seconds of observation, the 7 streams of black smoke each descended toward different fortress passes, leading groups of demonic forces to fight separately. Kuan Yi calmed down slightly, and only one white escape light rode the wind and flew forward from that swirling demonic aura. This light carried no accompanying troops, nor did it emit any demonic chi. It flew cleanly through the mass of black smoke raised by the other devil cultivators, untainted by a single speck of filth. Li Zijai grew wary and thought to himself, that must be a direct descendant of the Chuoba family. Yu Yue also looked grim and spoke up first. "I've heard that the Chuoba family's Liang dynasty was founded by orthodox devil cultivators. Back then, Chuoba Xuantan established the Great Liang state and revered the immortal Tao as the highest truth. Their feathered robes and attire all followed the Wei dynasty. They each raised their Dharma artifacts and ascended into the air. Outside the formation, the white mist surged, and the white light slowly took form. It revealed a white jade chariot, gleaming with bursts of Dharma light. The rolling white mist in front of it was drawn by 2 illusory horned beasts with faintly red eyes. The chariot slowly came to a halt before the formation. Seated atop the chariot was a man with righteous features. His face was square and broad, his brows thick, and his eyes so dark they were startling. His gaze was cold and naturally commanding. He wore a perfectly tailored white robe that had a band of jade-like white around his collar, with platinum gold patterns flowing down. He wore a tall crown and wide belt, and his feathered ceremonial robes exuded immense grandeur. He carried the bearing of orthodox immortal rites, walking on clouds with poise and grace. The Chuoba family had descended from the northern barbarians. After several centuries, their ceremonial attire was even more doctrinal than that of several Jiangnan sects. When he reached the formation, he stepped down from the chariot and spoke in a low voice. "Fellow Taoists of the south, come out and meet me." They had a mere Qi cultivation realm formation that was symbolic at best. Even the Li family found Foundation Establishment realm arrays difficult to set up, so how could the Azure Pond sect possibly place a major Foundation Establishment realm formation here? Thus, before cultivators of that realm, the formation would last no more than 7 minutes. The group exchanged glances and flew out of the formation together. The man in white merely frowned when 5 Foundation Establishment realm cultivators appeared. He paid no attention to Yu Yue's two newly advanced disciples, as if they were invisible, letting his gaze pause only on Yu Yue and Li Zijai. He didn't move, nor did the others attack. Instead, they listened as he shook his white sleeve and said in a deep voice, "Shingle Heaven, Chuoba Changyuan." As he spoke, he drew a golden jade seal from his sleeve, streaked with white and yellow. When he saw that Li Zijai and the others didn't recognize the gesture and remained silent, he chuckled and said, "Changyuan has long been in the north. Let me show the means of Jiangnan's demonic sects." 5 rays of light surged into the air as soon as he finished speaking. Li Zijai drew his fan with one hand and formed seals with the other, unleashing radiant light. Yu Yue and his 2 disciples joined forces, forming seals to release a sweeping beam of white light. Though Quan Yi had just spoken of retreat, he fought earnestly once battle commenced. Knowing he was slightly weaker than the other 3, he immediately revealed his immortal foundation, his entire body shining with radiant brilliance. His immortal foundation belonged to the soft advance essence of the 12 essences, also known as auspicious Qi. Golden clouds gathered beneath his feet as he pulled 2 golden cords from each hand, wrapping them around his fingers, though he had yet to unleash them. Li Zijai took note for a moment and silently thought, "This Quan Yi always insists on letting us probe first, making a lot of noise but achieving little." Just as that thought passed through his mind, Chuoba Changyuan made his move. A white wind surged forth with a sweep of his long sleeve, transforming into a beast midair and instantly shattering their spells. Chuoba Changyuan's expression relaxed as he smiled and said, "You fellow Taoists truly underestimate me. Why bother probing with such trivial spells? Though the Chuoba family has long resided in a grotto heaven, we still possess some measure of foundation." Li Zijai listened carefully, his thoughts turning. However, Yu Yue's face darkened when he saw their combined spell swatted aside like flies by Chuoba Changyuan. He sighed. Whether fortune or disaster, it cannot be avoided in the end. Yu Yue formed hand seals, and a small cauldron with 2 handles and 3 legs dropped from his sleeve. It was covered in complex patterns and was glowing purple-red. When it emerged, the lid suddenly flipped open, spewing out raging flames of violet and crimson. Li Zijai reached for the sword at his waist, stepped forward, and unleashed an arc of sword light that howled as it flew across the sky toward Chuoba Changyuan. Though Li Zijai focused on spell arts and had not dedicated himself to the sword path, and was already outshone by his younger brother in that regard, his natural talent and swordsmanship were solid. When he drew his sword, it was still something worth witnessing. Since his compatriots had engaged the enemy in battle, Quan Yi finally used his true strength and activated his immortal foundation. Auspicious Qi rose as he formed circular hand seals, his thumbs pressed against his middle fingers, which released a blast of yellow wind. The yellow wind stirred and expanded in the air, forming a hazy veil that seemed to obscure spiritual sense. It kicked up snow from the mountains and cast shadows everywhere, prompting Li Zijai to tighten his grip on his sword and think, "This spell is indeed effective against ordinary Foundation Establishment realm cultivators. It would even be quite potent, but against someone like Chuoba Changyuan, even without perception techniques, it's probably just a minor nuisance at best." As for Yu Yue's 2 disciples, they were even more pathetic. Reaching Foundation Establishment realm at 60 had already pushed them to their limits. What proper spells could they even cast? The 2 spells they managed to send drifted lazily through the air, not even warranting a blink from Chuoba Changyuan. Chapter 770, Chuoba Changyuan II. Chuoba Changyuan simply formed 2 seals in the air, leaving golden markings behind. A casual sweep of his sleeve reduced the spells to ashes. Li Zijai took the opportunity to observe and silently noted, "This man's Dharma robe is no ordinary garment. There's definitely something profound about that sleeve." He continued to form seals and cast spells, but he watched as Chuoba Changyuan released a golden radiance from the patterns, effortlessly deflecting the sword light. It grazed his sleeve and flew off. Meanwhile, Chuoba Changyuan threw out a jade tablet with his other hand. The tablet appeared ordinary, with pale markings and a gentle glow. However, when it landed on the cauldron, the violet red flames were instantly extinguished. The cauldron flickered weakly twice before retreating in defeat. At that moment, the light in Li Zijai's hand suddenly pulsed. A condensed rainbow beam shot out at incredible speed, darting through the sky straight at Chuoba Changyuan's face. At the same time, Yu Yue leapt into action, his beard bristling and eyes fierce as he shouted, "Haya!" Before the shout had fully left his mouth, a handful of golden light leapt from between his lips and teeth, flickering once before turning into a stream of light that shot forward. Quan Yi also gritted his teeth and finally flung out his 2 golden cords. One after the other, the golden cords slithered like snakes through the air. Chuoba Changyuan's smile dimmed slightly as he focused on the coordinated attacks coming at him. The first strike to arrive was Li Zijai's rainbow light. This move was one of the rare offensive arts in the Dawn Dew Gathering technique, known as Morning Rainbow Lure. Though Li Zijai rarely practiced offensive arts, he had trained in this quite often. Now that it was unleashed, it was incredibly swift. A morning glow spell art. Chuoba Changyuan's eyes shifted. He raised his hand, trying to repeat his earlier trick by swiping his sleeve to disperse it. But the rainbow beam suddenly burst into 8 streaks of multicolored light, scattering and reforming behind him in sync with his movement. Chuoba Changyuan struck empty air and frowned, but in that brief moment of delay, Kuan Yi's golden cords arrived. Clearly not seeing him as a threat, Chuoba Changyuan casually pushed out 2 waves of white light to block the cords. But Kuan Yi activated his immortal foundation, and his face glowed with rising chi. The cords pierced straight through the white light and hooked onto Chuoba's robes. "Why are all of you using these petty side door tricks?" shouted Chuoba Changyuan. Boom! The man finally lost his patience. He shattered the golden cords into countless sparkles with a vicious flick of his sleeve. Retracting his hand cleanly, white demonic patterns appeared on his face as he punched them. A thunderous boom rang out as a streak of golden light was forced out of hiding. Chuoba Changyuan grabbed it with a reverse motion, flinching slightly from the heat, then flung it aside with a burst of multicolored light, growling, "Old Taoist. That's not how you use sand-swallowing sword nourishment." As soon as he finished speaking, he grasped a bright, slender spear in his hand, its elegant lines flowing like water. White markings appeared across his face as he held it with both hands. It seemed he had activated a secret technique. His voice turned low and resonant. "Strike." He moved like an agile ape, spinning the spear in a blur of afterimages. He shattered both the rainbow and golden lights in a single sweep, blasting apart twin bursts of dazzling color. Chuoba Changyuan laughed heartily and exhaled a puff of white breath. In the next instant, the group's spell art surged forward, only to strike nothing but a phantom image. The Chuoba family's footwork technique was clearly superior to everyone present. Chuoba Changyuan vanished into thin air without leaving the slightest trace. Golden cloud. Li Zijai was the first to react, transforming into a flickering rainbow light. He reappeared several meters away, only to see a golden afterimage tearing through the air, hurtling toward Yu Yue. The old man was startled out of his wits. Though he had lived many years, he vanished like a startled hare at this critical moment, leaving behind 2 disciples who fled in panic. A light flick of Chuoba Changyuan's long spear shattered their defensive techniques, leaving them pale-faced and defenseless. Chuoba Changyuan smiled faintly and seemed to mouth something. As his lips moved, everyone felt their hairs stand on end and instinctively backed away. A piercing screech followed, leaving golden dust hanging heavily in the air and scattering radiant light in all directions. Wang. Li Zijai felt the light before him suddenly dim. He vaguely saw the floating golden dust above gathering into a brilliant arc that shot downward through his field of vision. It flickered once and vanished. The disciple behind Yu Yue spat out blood. His face turned golden white, and his body cracked like a shattered eggshell, exploding into a rain of blood that slowly drifted down. Chunks of flesh scattered, but before they could fall, they transformed into golden falling leaves, accompanied by the faint fragrance of osmanthus. The remaining disciple was so terrified he lost his entire soul. He was still stumbling backward when Chuoba Changyuan's voice echoed across the sky, "Old Taoist. This is sand-swallowing sword nourishment." The slain disciple had become an ominous phenomenon between heaven and earth. The rustling golden leaves fell behind Chuoba Changyuan, slowly blanketing the snow-covered mountains. Everyone was struck speechless. The old man's eyes turned red as he cried out in grief, "My child, AI." In just a few exchanges, Chuoba Changyuan had already found an opening and killed someone with 2 moves. How could the others not feel deeply shaken? The strength he revealed was stunning. Only Li Xuanfeng, the mountain's guardian, might rival him. A brief moment of silence passed before radiant glow burst forth again toward Chuoba Changyuan. Yu Yue had gone completely berserk. He hurled his purple-red cauldron forward and swallowed a crimson pill, activating his immortal foundation. Waves and mist rose from his body, painting him in deep oceanic blue. Li Zijai fully activated his immortal foundation, Universal Dawnmist. His feathered robe shimmered with streaks of heavenly glow that danced around its edges. The misty rainbow fog spread rapidly with the steam, and bands of 7-colored light emerged in the air, winding steadily toward Chuoba Changyuan. Chuoba Changyuan spun his spear to block their attacks, moving with practiced ease as if he was strolling through a courtyard. He said softly, "So the 2 of you have finally revealed your immortal foundations." At this point in the battle, no one could stop Chuoba Changyuan from speaking as he pleased. Raising an eyebrow, he continued, very good, very good. The Tao of the Purple Mansion Realm and Golden Core Realm truly has some connection to my own. What a curious and amusing display." Yu Yue's remaining disciple gritted his teeth and rode the wind, casting spells from the side. Kuan Yi, however, was momentarily stunned. He stared blankly at the golden leaves drifting down from the death phenomenon of a Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator. Only after a second did he snap out of it and join the other 2 in their assault. Chuoba Changyuan narrowed his eyes and chuckled lightly. At last, he revealed the seal from earlier and said softly, "Watch closely, everyone." He tossed the great seal high into the air. The interwoven yellow and white light surged upward, instantly filling the entire valley. The golden seal rose dazzlingly, and in a flash, transformed into several large words, Shingle Chuoba. The two ancient-style words glowed with dazzling Dharma light, weaving intense color in the sky. Li Zijai felt the brushstroke seemed familiar, but had no time to ponder it as Yu Yue cast a jade scissors spell that struck the seal. Boom! The impact only caused the seal to sway slightly. The intertwined yellow and white light descended from the sky and transformed into a deep-colored barrier. The bright barrier shimmered as yellow and white light flowed across it like ink, enveloping an area several kilometers wide in all directions. Rumble. The barrier closed with a thunderous roar. Yu Yue's face turned grim, and Kuan Yi's expression shifted to regret as he cried out in alarm, "This is bad. We should have left long ago." Chapter 771, Formation Seal. Everyone. Dark radiance surged from Chuoba Changyuan's body. He appeared especially luminous within the formation formed by the Great Seal. The spear in his hand emitted a fearsome edge. Kuan Yi's expression turned grim, his heart cold as ice, as he shouted, "So that's your skill? Not even 100 exchanges and you've already resorted to this Dharma artifact. How insidious. If you intended to kill us from the start, you needn't have gone through all this." Chuoba Changyuan remained calm and simply said, "You jest, fellow Dao. The Purple Mansion realm cultivators outside Shingle Heaven are treacherous and the Maha terrifying. As with all things, caution must come first. Treating every encounter as a life-or-death struggle is the way to preserve one's life." His expression grew solemn, and his words caused everyone's expressions to turn complicated. Yu Yue had long since lost his former composure and said coldly, "Fellow Taoists, we are now grasshoppers bound to the same rope. There's no retreat left. Let's stop hesitating and act." Kuan Yi remained silent. He extended his two golden cords, auspicious chi surging around him. He took out 2 pills from his sleeve and swallowed them, saying heavily, "I understand now." There had always been something hidden in Kuan Yi's heart that he dared not say. His immortal foundation vaguely sensed fortune and misfortune. He had long suspected there would be no good ending in this valley. He should have fled. But he had been unwilling to abandon his companions, and mindful of dragging his mother into it, he had delayed and lingered. Now that escape was no longer possible. His demeanor became instantly resolute. His entire presence transformed. The pills he had taken burned through his lifespan, but his aura surged more powerfully than ever. Li Zijai did not hesitate. He flipped out a gold-blue pill he had long kept hidden in his sleeve. The pill was called Autumn Convergence Pill, something he had secretly obtained through Yang Ruizhou. Once he had been chased all the way by Dongfeng Heian, he'd realized early the necessity of preparing life-saving pills. Coming north was even more dangerous, so he had prepared well in advance. Before he departed, his wife had even slipped him an ancient Foundation Establishment Realm talisman, which still rested in his storage pouch. He hadn't used it yet. Such ancient talismans were far more potent than modern ones. Each one consumed was one less remaining. They were exceedingly precious. Once consumed, the Autumn Convergence Pill boosted mana and stimulated one's Dao foundation. It not only rapidly restored his mana, but also significantly strengthened his spell arts, at the cost of about 3 years of vital qi and lifespan. Li Zijai quickly swallowed the pill, summoned his rainbow light, and let waves of heavenly glow ripple from his body. Only then did Chuoba Changyuan grow solemn, raising his long spear to point at them. He declared, "Fellow Taoists, seeking the Tao, preserving life, protecting our nature, let us fight for one final chance." Rumble. Yu Yue's hatred had already driven him to the edge, his lips trembling with rage. He hurled the purple-red cauldron with reckless abandon. Its 3 legs and 2 handles shone with light, and red light burst from the carved patterns as flames erupted from the cracks. It slammed down with a deafening boom. Clang. Chuoba Changyuan raised his long spear horizontally. The spear's streamlined, elegant form radiated light that held off the engulfing purple flames. Yu Yue had truly gone all in, not caring whether his Dharma artifact would be damaged. He attacked relentlessly and even managed to momentarily stymie his opponent. None of them had any path of retreat, so there were no more probing strikes. Li Zijai was cloaked in radiant light, rainbow mist pouring down like waterfalls. Chuoba Changyuan's movements were quickly restricted, and spell after spell rained down upon him, striking his Dharma robe and forcing its defenses to ripple. Kuan Yi lacked powerful backers, and no one knew how many years of his lifespan he had sacrificed through the pills. It was particularly brutal. Deep yellow tears flowed from his eyes as his golden cords looped tightly around Chuoba Changyuan's waist and back, binding him with all his might. Blows rained down on Chuoba Changyuan from all directions, and his breathing grew heavier. He swept his long spear more savagely than before, his eyes shining with a fierce brilliance. Good. Born within a grotto heaven, he lacked for nothing in terms of spell arts. His cultivation methods were also superior to most. The only exception was his spear technique. It was decent but rather conventional. But even with a few techniques under his belt, something was still missing. Now the deadly assault of 3 foes was exhilarating. His spirit soared and his spear danced fluidly through the air, flowing with unstoppable momentum. But Yu Yue had lived over 200 years and was sharp-eyed. He quickly noticed something was off. Furious, he cursed, "You little brat, you're using this old man as a whetstone." He spat out a mouthful of blood into his palm, and a jade knife appeared. Without hesitation, he plunged it into his own hand, gouging out a talisman. The talisman was small and agile. It glowed with a snowy luster. Blood dripped from Yu Yue's lips as he shouted, "Haya!" Two streams of violet flame burst into existence like flood dragons and slithered across the talisman's densely packed runes. Li Zijai's eyes lit up. He could tell this was likely Yu Yue's ultimate trump card. He immediately formed several seals, suppressing the urge to cough blood, and released multiple arcs of rainbow light to restrain Chuoba Changyuan. Yu Yue guided the two violet flames, hesitating for only a brief moment. As a veteran cultivator, he had already discerned something amiss. This jade seal seems formidable. It's surely an ancient Dharma artifact. If I strike it and the formation wavers, Li Zijai and Quan Yi will surely grow restless and possibly try to escape alone, which would ruin everything. Besides, such ancient Dharma artifacts are often bound to their owner's spirit. If we wound Chuoba Changyuan directly, there's no worry the artifact won't falter. These thoughts flashed through his mind in an instant. He made his decision without hesitation and hurled the flames at Chuoba Changyuan. The latter struggled forcefully, paling at the effort and causing Li Zijai to cough blood, and managed to free one hand. But Quan Yi, whose body was surging with auspicious qi, suddenly spat a mouthful of vital blood, visibly withering in an instant. His two golden cords surged upward and tightly bound Chuoba Changyuan's arm, pinning it firmly to his side. Boom! The two violet flames exploded, shaking the entire barrier formation twice. Ripples of instability appeared across its surface. Caught off guard, Chuoba Changyuan was engulfed by violet flames and spat out blood. Broken out of his focused state, Chuoba Changyuan was now cloaked in black smoke. He clutched his face and fell silent. Finally, two streaks of blood trickled down his cheeks, transforming into gray wind at his chin and dispersing into nothingness. Chuoba Changyuan continued to dodge attacks, but he coughed up two more mouthfuls of blood before recovering enough to open his eyes. Yu Yue's strike had been vicious and had been aimed squarely at Chuoba Changyuan's eyes. Blood streamed from both of them and the entire formation trembled violently. Yu Yue instantly confirmed his suspicion. At the same time, though Li Zijai had never handled ancient Dharma artifacts before, he saw through it at a glance and said gravely, "This man's life may be linked to the artifact. Right now, it only imprisons, it hasn't attacked. Herding him together is our chance to break free." Li Zijai had already voiced Yu Yue's thoughts before he could speak them aloud. Sure enough, his disciple and Quan Yi both lit up with realization, and a ruthless gleam flashed through their eyes. Chuoba Changyuan wiped his face and realized that his perception technique had been broken. The world before him was now faint and blurry. His blood stirred with fury. He pointed his long spear toward the group once again, battle intent surging, and said coldly, "Not bad, come again." Chapter 772, The Battle Under the Great Seal I. But Li Zijai had already drawn his sword and arrived, several flashes of light flickering and falling, before Chuoba Changyuan could finish speaking. Quan Yi also retracted his golden cords and struck with a palm imprint of golden light. Chuoba Changyuan merely raised his spear to block, and the two forces clashed. Quan Yi's strike made the long spear tremble. Chuoba Changyuan shifted slightly, stretching out his ape-like arm to block Li Zijai, only to discover that the man in the feathered robe was still forming a spell gesture. Just as Chuoba Changyuan's arm touched him, he turned into a misty haze. Rainbow Phantom split. Taking advantage of the moment his opponent's perception technique was broken, Li Zijai split into multiple illusions that scattered in different directions. His true form emerged behind Chuoba Changyuan, and with a spell gesture, Morning Rainbow Lure surged forth, striking directly at his back. However, Chuoba Changyuan's Dharma robe was extremely tough. Even after taking a direct hit, his face merely paled further. He dispersed three of the illusions with a sweeping motion. His spear shimmered with golden light as it spun and gently flicked against Yu Yue's large purple-red cauldron. Yu Yue was a seasoned cultivator and posed the greatest threat. Chuoba Changyuan's spear strike was meant to hold the cauldron back. Dark red veins appeared on his arm, and his blood energy churned violently. Clearly, he had suffered a loss, yet the purple flame within the cauldron managed to surge past the lid and lick at his Dao robe. Chuoba Changyuan felt a slight pain in his arm and calculated silently. This man in the feathered robe is light and elusive. He's not one suited for direct combat. I've already seen through his perception technique. Chasing him down would be a waste of time. The man with the golden cords is weak and cowardly. He's unwilling to confront me directly. The others are mediocre. The most urgent task is to eliminate this old Taoist. He summoned another jade tablet and effortlessly suppressed the flame in the cauldron. He then took 2 steps through the air, his figure lunging forward like a phantom. Yu Yue was unafraid. His beard and hair flared outward as he held a purple flame in each hand. The spell brought flames down like a storm, while violet smoke coiled around him. Hatred flared in his heart as well. This brat's Dharma robe is powerful, and he has many artifacts along with 2 deadly spells. But the spear in his hand is quite ordinary. Though formidable, he relies heavily on external tools. His spells are lethal, but if we act together, there's still a chance of victory. He conjured flames to block Chuoba Changyuan's spear. Bluish water mist emerged as his immortal foundation circulated. Water and fire combined, and ferocity twisted his face, suiting his wild appearance. Yu Yue had been born when the Yu family still basked in its former glory. He and several younger clansmen had been among the last generation of geniuses. At that time, the Yu family had not yet splintered and faded into obscurity. The techniques and spells he had cultivated were of the highest tier. Now, as he unleashed his might, water and fire intertwined, making for an imposing display. Yet Chuoba Changyuan remained indifferent. He merely furrowed his brow and spun his spear to defend. Kuan Yi threw out his golden cords to entangle him, while Li Zijai maneuvered to the side with heavenly glow and used rainbow light to assist. Although Chuoba Changyuan was far stronger than them, having his perception technique broken made it much harder to deal with Li Zijai. His initial strikes often left Yu Yue pale and Kuan Yi spitting blood, yet he still couldn't catch Li Zijai. The three exchanged dozens of moves. Though some on Li Zijai's side occasionally coughed up blood, what were a few mouthfuls of blood when lives were at stake. They relentlessly trapped Chuoba Changyuan as they wore down his mana. Whoosh. Struck in the back again by the rainbow light, Chuoba Changyuan gripped his spear with both hands, his expression darkening. His Dharma artifact spun in his grasp as he formed a spell gesture, pressing 2 fingers together to emit a burst of Dharma light. Strangely enough, though the Chuoba family was a prestigious devil cultivator family, Chuoba Changyuan only gave off immortal aura during the battle. There was no trace of demonic or blood chi. Even the techniques he used were upright and righteous immortal arts. Naturally, the others wouldn't let him have his way. Almost as soon as Chuoba Changyuan stopped moving, multiple spell arts rained down. Prepared, he shifted the spell gesture to one hand, while the other reversed his grip on the spear to shield himself. At the same time, his sleeve flared high, releasing a wave of pure energy. The spells blasted their way through it, but the energy wave had drained 40% of their power. One by one, they struck the spear, exploding in dazzling brilliance, sending hues in all directions. Though his face turned a shade paler from the impact, Chuoba Changyuan subtly smiled, loosening his grip slightly to absorb the force. Then his pupils suddenly widened. Golden cloud. 3 brilliant beams of colored light abruptly appeared over 10 meters away, leaping forward in an instant. Li Zijai suddenly appeared, flinging out a sleeveful of heavenly glow that dispersed through the air like mist and silk. The man in the feathered robe reached out without hesitation, and to everyone's surprise, gripped the sharp edge of the spear. Vibrant rainbow light rippled from his palm, floating light gathering. Heavenly glow was naturally good at knocking down and seizing objects. Chuoba Changyuan's focus had been split and he had been bombarded by spells, so he naturally had to loosen his grip slightly to absorb the blows. Li Zijai saw the opening and closed in with golden cloud to snatch the weapon. An instant later, Chuoba Changyuan felt a sudden lightness in his hand. His half-relaxed grip gave way completely. The scene before him spun briefly, and his spear was already in Li Zijai's hands. The spear felt cool to the touch. It was smooth and solid. It was made from extremely tough material, and Li Zijai could feel spiritual energy surging from within. It was a top-grade Dharma artifact, only comparable to his own Kinch sword. Li Zijai drew back with the spear, but blood instantly split his palm open in several places. His skin was torn to the bone and bled freely down to his wrist, yet he was already forming a spell gesture with the other hand. His middle and ring fingers curled into his palm, and the rest extended like a cauldron. His face went pale as he shouted, "Senior Yu." Yu Yue was genuinely startled, but he was quickly elated. His eyebrows shot up with excitement as he cried out, "Good." The purple cauldron immediately surged forward. Even without Yu Yue's orders, Kuan Yi and the other disciples launched fierce attacks at Chuoba Changyuan, forcing him to lose the chance to take back his spear. A furious surge of indignation, like capsizing in a gutter, filled Chuoba Changyuan's heart. He was so enraged he nearly lost control of the spell he was about to complete. His brows shot up, and he roared like spring lightning, "How dare you!" White light flared in his other hand, transforming into 6 white ribbons trailing long tails. Astonishingly, he withstood the barrage of spell arts with just a wave of his sleeve, while he threw a strike toward Li Zijai with his other hand. 6 dazzling beams of white light sizzled through the Li Zijai barely managed to cast Golden Cloud, part of his heavenly glow escape spell. His figure shifted dozens of meters to the side, forcing the 6 streaks of white light to arc low. Meanwhile, the Dharma seal in his hand was already complete. Calamity Dispelling Heart Cauldron. The very first spell art Li Zijai had learned after joining the sect was this life-saving technique. Now, a faint cauldron of heavenly glow manifested in his hands as he poured all his mana into it without restraint. He even drew in surrounding spiritual energy in torrents to fuel his spell art. The streaks of white light were astonishingly fast. Even though Li Zijia had shifted to the other side of the battlefield with his escape spell, the white light reversed direction instantly and shot toward him. The beams paused for a moment before plunging directly into the heart cauldron in his hands. Boom! A chaotic blast of white light erupted in the sky. The spell art in Li Zijia's hands held for 3 full breaths before he flung it away like it was scalding him, but it exploded uncontrollably before he could make his own escape. The sound of bones cracking echoed loudly as he tumbled downward at an angle, coughing up blood. Chapter 773, The Battle Under the Great Seal II. Purple flames poured down like boiling water, dousing Chuoba Changyuan's head and face. Thick white mist burst upward as he lost his grip on his Dharma artifact. He was forced to raise both hands to block the massive purple cauldron. A deep violet red blood lined Yu Yue's lips, dripping down his white beard as streams of deep blue water and purple flame struck simultaneously. The elder's eyes flared with brilliance as he shouted, "Haya!" Golden light flickered from his mouth again and vanished into the air. Chuoba Changyuan's eyes were bloodshot as his robes rippled wildly. One hand was braced against the searing purple cauldron, filling the air with the scent of scorched flesh, yet his expression remained unchanged. His other forearm was hooked by 2 golden cords, which was yanking Kuan Yi off balance. The blue water turned into cords that tightly bound his wrists. The 3 of them worked in concert, not only preventing Chuoba Changyuan from sweeping his sleeve to dispel spells, but even stopping him from forming a single hand seal. Crackle snap, more searing purple flames coiled around his neck, filling the air with the scent of charred flesh. Yet Chuoba Changyuan continued to crane his neck upward, expression both calm and ruthless, eyes wide as if desperately watching for something. Crack! A loud, crisp sound of bone snapping rang out as Chuoba Changyuan forcibly twisted his own neck to a grotesque angle. His white teeth snapped open and shut with sharp cracks as he panted. Clang. His white teeth were freshly stained with blood as he bit down hard on a golden leaf-shaped object. It struggled fiercely between his jaws, producing a grating, tooth-rattling screech that made Yu Yue's expression grow grim. Boom! The golden leaf-shaped object lingered for a moment before crumbling into dust and vanishing. White patterns surfaced across Chuoba Changyuan's body, and he even had the leisure to laugh. He said, "Old Taoist, I told you, sand-swallowing sword nourishment isn't meant to be used like that." Golden light flickered like threads of mist between Chuoba Changyuan's lips and teeth. Suddenly, Kuan Yi threw his head back and screamed in agony. The back of his neck was drenched in blood, and he dropped like a bird with broken wings. The golden cord slackened, and Chuoba Changyuan slowly twisted his dislocated neck back into place, each movement accompanied by loud cracking sounds. The many spell arts surrounding him gradually faded, and gold-red blood flowed back into his wounds along the lines of his skin. He used the great Liang Shingle Immortal Yin art. The markings on his body became clearer, stretching along the contours of his muscles and bones. Only now did a sinister, eerie aura begin to emerge around him. Naturally, Yu Yue couldn't stand by idly. He thrust the massive cauldron forward to strike. Boom. Chuoba Changyuan gestured gently, and the massive seal in the sky finally responded, crashing down and striking the purple-red fire cauldron with a thunderous bang. Yu Yue's face went pale in an instant. The cauldron flew back, its brilliance dimming. It hovered midair unmoving as he struggled for breath for a long moment. A second later, a pale Li Zijia rose back into the air. One of his arms was swollen with shattered bones and torn muscles, but he didn't care. He swallowed another autumn convergence pill. Taking a single autumn convergence pill usually required years of rest, and if more were taken recklessly, it could shorten one's lifespan by several decades. The limit was 3 at once, or else the immortal foundation could collapse, but given the current situation, there was no time to worry. Li Zijia consumed the pill and waited for his mana to replenish, his gaze heavy and dark. Crack, crack, crack. The massive seal in the sky gradually lost its radiance. Streams of white and yellow light cascaded down like a waterfall and poured into Chuoba Changyuan's body. Dense, inky black patterns climbed across his form, spreading thick and fast. Though Li Zijia still felt some tightness in his chest, the pill gradually restored him. Watching closely, he confirmed that the surrounding barriers were weakening and dissipating as the seal's glow faded, so he waited calmly for the right moment. Chuoba Changyuan finally opened his eyes and glanced at the spear in Li Zijia's hand. His face shimmered with white and golden hues, and his voice rang like a bell and drum. "In all these decades, only you have dared to seize my Dharma artifact." Good. Chuoba Changyuan's expression was neither jealous nor admiring, but rather excited. Yu Yue's face grew increasingly grim, while behind him, Kuan Yi wobbled back into the air. A large portion of his face was missing, and his breath was barely a whisper. The spell art from Chuoba Changyuan had shattered most of his cheek and exited through the back of his neck. Though the vitality of a Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator was strong, despair filled his eyes. He floated unsteadily, blood dripping into the air and turning into faint auspicious mist as it scattered. Yu Yue remained silent. Chuoba Changyuan's gaze shifted slightly as the purple cauldron reappeared, and the rainbow light shot forth once more. Chuoba Changyuan extended both arms, but struck with one palm, sending the cauldron shuddering violently. Yu Yue's face turned pale as various streams of mana intertwined in the air. A barely holding on Quan Yi struggled into the sky amid the overlapping lights of magical power. He scanned the area blearily through a half-blinded eye. The great seal above had dimmed, and though the surrounding barrier had thinned, it still stood tall. If only I had known, thought Quan Yi. Quan Yi stood in the center, and a long, muffled sigh escaped his ruined mouth. His immortal foundation was aligned with auspicious qi, a path called Scroll of Fortunate Attainments. He had divined a deadly tribulation awaiting him in the north long ago, but what use was foresight? It was bound to come. Who among those who had ventured to the north would not face no life-and-death tribulation? In the end, whether it had been foreseen or not made no real difference. Quan Yi opened his eyes wide and gazed at the great seal, then let out a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering wail. Fellow Taoists, my mother still remains in the sect. His words hung in the air as his entire body transformed into dense layers of golden radiance and lit up the sky. Decades of cultivation in the Scroll of Fortunate Attainment's immortal foundation were, in an instant, converted by some secret technique into a rune-laced burst of brilliance that shot heavenward. The dense glow spread out, falling gently over Li Zijai and Yu Yue and bathing their faces and bodies. They felt like they were standing on clouds as their breaths eased and hearts calmed. All of their Dharma artifacts trembled slightly. Be it the purple fire cauldron, the jade tablet thrown by Chuoba Changyuan, or even the Ziyu weapon in Li Zijai's hand, all were veiled in a shimmering glow. Li Zijai and Yu Yue were relatively unaffected, but Chuoba Changyuan clearly frowned as his vision was obscured. His perception technique had already been shattered, and now his vision was clouded by the brilliance born from a lifetime's cultivation. He truly couldn't see clearly. Yu Yue sighed and said, "Let's go." The two exchanged a glance and struck together, seizing this brief moment of Chuoba Changyuan's distraction and the shrouding of the Great Seal, and directed their combined power at the barrier. Crack. The barrier had already thinned to a mere veil. Their joint attack shattered it instantly, and they shot out of the formation. Realizing this, Chuoba Changyuan launched his escape light and tread upon white-yellow qi to pursue. Chapter 774, Quantao I. Li Zijai had just stepped out of the grand formation when his eyes, infused with heavenly glow, saw a completely different world before him. Baixiang Valley had once been bathed in a gentle winter sun, its hills lined with maple trees weighed down by snow as soft as white clouds, creating a scene of pure brilliance between heaven and earth. Now, it had turned a dim gray-black, and a hazy gloom stretched as far as the eye could see. Black clouds now rolled through the sky, the snow had lost its luster, and dense shadows blanketed the forests. The Dharma light surrounding the area was now only barely noticeable. Instead, beams of devilish light shot skyward, leaving one dark tail flame after another. Baixiang Valley had been razed to the ground. Several lonely skeletons stood amid shattered tiles. Their heads had been severed and taken to be used as Dharma artifacts. Gray-yellow dust drifted over the surface, and the bone-white remains were still stained with dried blood. What a wretched land of demonic taint. Li Zijai fled swiftly along the mountain pass. A brief glance confirmed that the skeletons belonged to members of the Bai family. When they had first arrived, the old Bai patriarch had expressed endless gratitude. Who could have thought Azure Pond sect would use them to fend off the devil cultivators, and only not a single Bai family member would survive in the end. There was no time to think further. He opened his palm. What had once been a terrifying wound had now sealed like a small mouth, leaving only a few red seams. Li Zijai shook out an exquisitely crafted spear from the sleeve of his feathered robe and gripped it tightly. The spear was already thrashing wildly, its bladed tip flashing incessantly, shedding fragment-like glimmers of light. As Li Zijai soared faster and faster on clouds of heavenly glow, he formed seals with one hand, tapping the spear from the tail to the bright white center, and finally the thin, razor-sharp blade. Each strike lit up streaks of multicolored light. This spear can't be saved. Keeping it will only cause trouble. Judging by Chuoba Changyuan's eyes, he'll come after me for sure. If I discard it at the right time, it might just save my life. He no longer cared about draining his mana. He layered spell after spell onto the spear in quick succession, sealing it tightly. He let it ride the wind, rapidly forming hand signs and chanting incantations to gather more heavenly glow. Chuoba Changyuan stepped out of the formation, opened his mouth, and inhaled forcefully. The giant seal in the sky instantly shrank, transforming into the size of a thumb before flying into his mouth. Chuoba Changyuan's expression lit up, his breath steadied significantly, and the dimness in his eyes began to fade. He swept the area with a quick glance and unhesitatingly abandoned Yu Yue to pursue Li Zijai on radiant light. Second young master. The moment Chuoba Changyuan exited the formation and swallowed the seal, 2 streaks of black chi rode the clouds toward him. 2 devil cultivators emerged, bowing low and keeping their eyes averted. Second young master, would you have us? Chuoba Changyuan was rising on the wind. He furrowed his brows, and with a flick of his sleeve he sent them stumbling backward. He commanded, "Go catch that old Taoist and bring him back." As he ascended into the sky, a chariot rushed through rolling clouds and halted beneath him. Chuoba Changyuan sat cross-legged in serenity, silently regulating his breath. The chariot beneath him tore after Li Zijai on its own. Ahead, Li Zijai's eyes were glowing with gathered heavenly glow. He cautiously buried the radiance beneath his feet and dove into the heavy mist, only to see black smoke swirling as a devil cultivator hurtled toward him. The devil cultivator held a large shield and was clad in black robes. His narrow eyes gleamed from beneath as he shouted, "You're not getting away, boy." Late stage of the chi cultivation realm. Li Zijai instantly saw through the man's intentions and let out a snort of laughter. He saw me leave the formation wounded and assumed I had little mana left. He's not being vigilant at all. Banking on his large shield and the devil cultivator's tenacious life force, he wants to gamble on killing me to curry favor with Chuoba Changyuan. But this devil cultivator had miscalculated. Li Zijai had already anticipated interference and had long prepared a spell in his hand. Now, as he darted toward his attacker, he unleashed a burst of heavenly glow. The devil cultivator had been overly optimistic, and Li Zijai's spell was no mere minor technique. The heavenly glow burned through the shield as if it wasn't even there and smashed into the cultivator's face. Boom! Ripples of multicolored light surged as the devil cultivator was blown apart on the spot. His flesh quickly separated from his blood and bones under the caress of heavenly glow, scattering pale skeleton fragments in all directions. Li Zijai didn't even pause and continued to shoot forward. He hadn't lost much time to this obstacle. A flicker of heavenly glow carried him forward just a heartbeat before the gray mist behind him parted to reveal a lavish chariot. Chuoba Changyuan sat cross-legged in the chariot as the devil cultivator's broken body still writhed in midair, with pieces of flesh dropping off in chunks. Chuoba Changyuan didn't even glance at him as the chariot sped past, leaving behind only the fading wails of the devil cultivator. Li Zijai had only put a little distance between him and the battlefield before realizing Chuoba Changyuan had already caught up. Though his heavenly glow gave him far greater speed than ordinary cultivators, it was still no match for the divine chariot, and he could only let the others slowly gain on him. Chuoba Changyuan opened his eyes aboard the chariot and called out, "Fellow Taoist." Li Zijai saw that the surrounding devil cultivators had been left far behind and that he was approaching a more open area. Only then did he retrieve his spear. There were too many devil cultivators before, all Chuoba Changyuan's dogs. If I threw the spear then, they'd just fetch it and he wouldn't be distracted. But now we're in a clear open stretch, I've flown a good distance, and there's no demonic smoke in sight. This is the right time. He tossed the spear into the air and kicked its tail. It shot forward like an arrow, streaking rapidly toward the south before vanishing into the layers of clouds. Chuoba Changyuan immediately formed a hand seal. But when he saw that his Dharma artifact was not returning, he immediately understood that the feathered robe cultivator ahead had sealed its spiritual sense. He chuckled softly, and his voice boomed like a great bell as he said, "Fellow Taoist, you're overthinking it. Even if I did lose my Dharma artifact, who would dare pick up something from the Chuoba family? Killing you will take only 15 minutes. I can retrieve it afterward." Li Zijai completely ignored him. He slapped both his wrists dozens of times until a talisman leapt into his palm. He flicked his sleeve and it lit up, shooting straight toward the rear. The talisman turned into a gloomy gray cloth the moment it left his palm. The sounds of drums and gongs rang out around him, accompanied by eerie giggles and wails as incense smoke filled the air. The cloth expanded as if it was inflated, spinning and leaping through the air like a great bird in flight. It was naturally the ancient talisman Yang Ruizhou had given him. Chuoba Changyuan, riding in his chariot, paused for the first time, frowning as he looked at the gray cloth. He thought someone from the underworld. Chapter 775, Quanto II. As he was born into a family with a grotto heaven, Chuoba Changyuan was extremely well informed, especially about the southern regions. The gray cloth released by the talisman looked all too familiar and clearly bore the traits of the underworld. His frown deepened as he thought, it looks just like Judge Yang's 9-layer attribute net from the Zhenin office. Could his surname be Yang? He pondered to himself, and sure enough, the gray cloth delayed him. The spell art he had been preparing in his hand flared to life, 6 streaks of white light striking the cloth from both sides, only to be completely absorbed and vanishing without a trace. It's just an old talisman. No matter. I'll capture him first and ask questions later. He quickly dismissed his thoughts and formed a hand seal. A white-yellow lotus bloomed in his palm, its 9 petals crisp and distinct. It fell into the cloth, which stretched and strained but only showed faint cracks. But Chuoba Changyun had achieved his aim. He placed one hand beneath his middle finger and tapped it lightly with his pinky. The chariot roared as it crashed into the cloth, while his figure reappeared beyond it, continuing the chase. This talisman is even better than I expected. Li Zijai felt significantly more at ease having blocked Chuoba Changyun twice in a row. After passing several small hills, a checkpoint appeared ahead, but there was no joy on Li Zijai's face, only solemn focus. Just as expected, no cultivators came to assist from the checkpoint. Instead, a glowing grand formation separated the inside from the outside, completely cutting off the road to the south. As expected, said Li Zijai. The commotion between Li Zijai and Chuoba Changyun had been quite loud and eye-catching. The chariot racing through the skies must have been visible for kilometers away. Chuoba Changyun was clearly not without cunning. He had shouted his family name loudly on purpose, cutting off any chance of Li Zijai receiving aid. Since the checkpoint was sealed, Li Zijai felt a chill in his heart, though he bore no resentment. He could only change direction and continue fleeing. If they deactivated the guarding formation for me, Chuoba Changyun would follow right in. They might lose the checkpoint for no reason, and even risk offending the Chuoba family. If I were them, I wouldn't deactivate it either for a stranger. Instead, closing the gate and staying silent is the safest move. No one can find fault in that. After all, who's to say this isn't just a ruse to trick them into deactivating the formation? He soon passed another small valley, where the formation was likewise in place, guarding the area tightly. Li Zijai could only pour all his mana and movement techniques into the heavenly glow beneath his feet, quietly gripping his final autumn convergence pill in his hand. When he chanced to look back at Chuoba Changyun, Li Zijai saw that the great seal above his head had already been summoned. The 4 words Shingle Chuoba shone brilliantly in gold, visible even from a great distance. Chengdu Pass was originally the mountain gate of Chuandu Gate, a minor sect in Su State. However, the sect had been wiped out long ago during the Devil Plague, leaving behind a decent mountain range that had been later occupied by devil cultivators. After the Azure Pond sect claimed the mountain, they stationed men to guard it. Li Quantao, still wearing mourning clothes for his late father, rushed to the mountain without delay. The Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator originally stationed in the mountain was a stranger. He claimed to be from the Yuan family of Mushroom Forest and gave the name Yuan Haiyuan. He appeared to be quite old, with a pale and aged face, and at first he didn't speak much. Li Quantao had cultivated within the sect his whole life, rarely leaving his father's peak. He believed himself to be lacking in schemes or social skills, and since he wasn't familiar with the Yuan family, he didn't bother interacting with Yuan Haiyuan. But after fighting side by side for a while, they eventually found common ground. Yuan Haiyuan always responded smoothly to any topic, making conversations surprisingly pleasant. Judging by the change in weather, I'd say Baixiang Valley's been struck by devil cultivators. Li Quantao spoke casually, but Yuan Haiyuan's face. His aged eyes stared into the distance as he muttered vaguely, Baixiang Valley is guarded by the Li family. They say it's the 3rd young master of the Li family, Peak Master Li Zijai of Changshan Peak. Looks like he's in for a rough time. Li Quantao's face immediately filled with worry as he whispered, that's true. The Chuoba family has produced Golden Core Realm cultivators. Though their numbers have declined and they're no longer as miraculous, they are still direct descendants of the Purple Mansion realm. They're not someone anyone can provoke. I hope the Peak Master can hold on. His words were clearly biased, which immediately piqued Yuan Haiyuan's interest. The old man casually asked, now that you mention it, you're also surnamed Li. Li Quantao smiled but said nothing. He remembered his father's advice well. If someone made conversation feel too easy, they were likely far more cunning. They hadn't known each other long, so he dared not say too much. Yuan Haiyuan was just about to probe further when 2 streaks of light came speeding from the east, shining brightly in the sky. The 2 immediately grew alert and looked up. They saw the first streak of light was dimmed, its colors subdued, though a hint of heavenly glow could still be discerned. The second streak was faster and had nearly caught up with the tail of the heavenly glow. The trailing light was white and yellow, with a large seal-like object floating above it. 4 large characters were clearly visible. The cultivators of Azure Pond had all studied ancient script and recognized the characters as Shingle Chuoba. Yuan Haiyuan stared at the heavenly glow ahead, and his heart skipped a beat. A hot emotion stirred within him, and his lips moved involuntarily as he exclaimed, Zijai. He's actually been chased all the way here. Though Yuan Haiyuan spoke without intent, Li Quantao had been listening carefully. As soon as he heard the name, it all clicked. The aura of that heavenly glow was indeed familiar, one he had surely heard of before. Looks like it's the same Li Zijai who visited my father the other day. My older brother called him a refined young gentleman, so it seems he truly is. Li Quantao paused in surprise, but quickly snapped back to attention. Alarmed, he grabbed Yuan Haiyuan by the arm and shouted, deactivate the formation. Senior Yuan, deactivate the formation. Deactivate the formation. Yuan Haiyuan jolted in place, fumbling inside his sleeve twice before freezing. He stood there dazedly, images of his children and brothers flashing through his mind. His voice trembled in fear as he said, "That's the Chuoba family we're talking about." But Li Quanto tugged harder on his arm, shaking Yuan Haiyuan out of his daze. The burning emotion within Yuan Haiyuan turned into something vaguely bitter as he cried out again, "Deactivate the formation." "Are you mad? That's the Chuoba family. You said to yourself they're not people to provoke." "I said deactivate it." Li Quanto erupted, casting aside all pretense of his junior status. His voice thundered in Yuan Haiyuan's ear. Though not fierce by nature, his face was twisted with urgency as he yelled, "Deactivate the formation, Taoist. I must save this man." "Are you insane?" Yuan Haiyuan firmly refused. As the controller of the formation, Li Quanto's jade token only allowed for his own passage. Li Quanto's eyes reddened with fury as he bit back his temper. "Senior Yuan, this man once did my family a great kindness. Please deactivate the formation quickly." "What kind of kindness are we talking about?" Yuan Haiyuan would not relent, dodging with questions to steer the conversation away. But Li Quanto saw through it, his expression turning cold as he answered, "Very well, if you won't deactivate it, I'll walk out of this formation myself." This was now an entirely different matter. Yuan Haiyuan shuddered, overcome with complicated feelings, and exclaimed in shock, "Why go this far?" "Why?" Li Quanto's fury burned. His eyes blazed, and he slammed his Dharma artifact into the wall with a sharp clang, leaving a deep dent. He spoke coldly. "My father bore infamy, living in isolation on Fuchin Peak for centuries while he was hated and scorned by all. Only Li Zijai acknowledged the Li family's old bonds and still visited him. When my father attempted his breakthrough, everyone knew it was doomed. In the past, they called him Master and Cheng out of gratitude for his pills, but when they saw I couldn't inherit the alchemy Dao and had no benefits to offer, not a single person dared to help for fear of the Kai family. Yet though the Li family head had just passed, they still scraped together spirit items to aid us. My younger uncle traveled thousands of kilometers to fetch them, and when we tallied the numbers, their contribution exceeded all the others combined. Li Quanto didn't spare Yuan Haiyuan another glance. He rose on the wind and shot forward, leaving behind a cold sentence that echoed in the winter air. "Now that Zijai is in danger, how could I ever face my late father if I turn a blind eye?" His eyes were wide with rage, and his next words hit the old man like a thunderclap. "Old senior, keep your life if you wish, but I Quanto am still young and I'm not yet stingy." In the blink of an eye, Li Quanto was gone as he blurred past the boundaries of the formation. The old man stood there, eyes blank and ice creeping over his body. The winter wind, as if ignoring his foundation establishment realm body, cut through his organs and made him shiver uncontrollably. But his back was drenched in sweat. Yuan Haiyuan's vision turned white. His thoughts were a blur. The words still echoed in his head, making his teeth chatter as he collapsed onto the wall's edge. "When I caught a cold at 6, it felt just like this." The old man suddenly recalled the memory. His face had turned a frosty shade of blue, and he slowly brought out his aged hands, rubbing them together before his chest. Chapter 776, En Cheng I. Li Zijai had understood early on that guarding the valley was no easy task. If the Chuoba family sent some random subordinate, they would be fine. But if they sent a direct descendant, then he would need to prepare an escape route. So he had inquired about the relevant rosters, memorized the approximate layout of the checkpoints surrounding Baixiang Valley, and organized a list of the cultivators stationed at each. Now, he followed the shortest possible route in his flight. He rode past more than 10 strongholds on Heavenly Glow. Most were minor hills and small formations. Some had been raised by devil cultivators, while others were simply too afraid to appear, remaining eerily silent. He had passed 2 major formations. One remained sealed shut and the other was surrounded by devil cultivators. It had been too dangerous to approach. That one had originally housed members of the Yang family, but they were either trapped or dead. No signs of life remained. He could only forge ahead blindly. Now his back was soaked with sweat and his insides in complete disarray. His spiritual sea was nearly empty and the heavenly glow had grown dim. He flew past another small mountain. Its formation was unresponsive, turning him away at the threshold. Li Zijai hovered lightly on the dim heavenly glow and glanced downward twice. His insides were in turmoil as danger loomed. He steadied himself with a spell and thought to himself, more than 10 formations, and not a single one familiar to my family. Is this just ill fortune or deliberate plotting? His heavenly glow was like the very image of a dying lamp. He only had 1 autumn convergence pill left, but he could no longer afford to save it. He quickly calculated, there's only 1 pill left and Chuoba Changyuan is closing in. The problem won't be mana exhaustion. I'll be caught before I even reach Mount Baiyan. A cold feeling crept across his heart. Chengdu Pass ahead was most likely under the guard of Yuan Haiyuan, elder brother to his master Yuan Tuan. The two were already estranged. The old man is timid and indecisive. He's eager to keep the peace and please outsiders. Even someone like Yuan Chengdan dared to cut down his own family's finest. There's no hope he'll act with clarity now, thought Li Zijai. Even the younger members of the Kai family found that man's personality to be spineless. Of course, he wouldn't dare confront the Chuoba family. He would hesitate even when the two sides weren't at odds. There was no chance he would open the formation to welcome Li Zijai. So Li Zijai sped up to pass quickly. But unexpectedly, a silvery-white ripple of spiritual energy surged outward to meet him from within Chengdu Pass's formation. "Peak Master, I've come to aid you." Li Zijai instantly felt a surge of hope. He paused in surprise and quickly saw that the person was not from the Yuan family. He guessed they were from the Ning or Yang families and replied, "Fellow Taoist, we're already near Mount Baiyan, just delay him a little. Reinforcements are on the way." He spoke those words for Chuoba Changyuan to hear. Li Zijai quickly formed hand seals, wary of an ambush. With a flick of his finger, the final autumn convergence pill slipped into his mouth. Chuoba Changyuan finally frowned, summoning a streak of white light to his palm as he said coldly, "Whose family are you from? Stay out of this." Li Quantao shook his sleeve, and a warm, lustrous white pearl leapt into the air, shedding radiance as he replied, "This is my family matter. I have no choice but to intervene." Chuoba Changyuan assumed this was one of Li Zijai's kin coming to his rescue, and his expression darkened. But then streaks of flowing light burst from the pearl in Li Quantao's hand and rose into the clouds. Thunder roared overhead, and droplets of water began to rise from beneath their feet, joining the clouds above. Li Zijai immediately felt lighter, and the mana required to ride the heavenly glow dropped sharply. Chuoba Changyuan, momentarily obstructed, gave Li Zijai a chance to breathe. His complexion regained color, but what caught him off guard was the Dharma artifact in the young man's hand. "That's the Water Wall Pearl. He's from Li Yancheng's line." Li Yancheng had been nicknamed Water Wall Pearl precisely because of this very artifact. It was an ancient Dharma artifact retrieved from the ruins of the Miffin sect. It was well known throughout their sect. Now that Li Yancheng had passed, this young man was likely his descendant. "He's willing to help me," thought Li Zijai. He had taken every detour through the mountains and planned for every possibility to preserve his life. But he had never expected that rescue would come from someone of Fuchin Peak. But though he was stunned, he didn't slow his hands. The pill's energy surged through him, and he launched a heavenly glow spell art skyward. Chuoba Changyuan scanned the newcomer with his spiritual sense. Li Quantao was merely at the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm. He wasn't worth notice, much just like Yu Yuwei's two disciples, so Chuoba Changyuan launched an attack with a casual wave of his sleeve. But Li Quantao was the son of a great alchemy master. He was gifted and well-resourced. More importantly, he wielded the ancient Dharma artifact, the Water Wall Pearl. When he unleashed his mana, streams of gray-white water of the Water Mansion burst forth, merging with the surrounding wind. Water Mansion Dao were rare even in the southern Jiangnan region, let alone in the north. Chuoba Changyuan suddenly felt the spiritual winds beside him turn wild and unruly beneath his feet. He had to halt midair to stabilize himself. "Water Mansion," muttered Chuoba Changyuan. Chuoba Changyuan's expression shifted at once and his eyes showed interest. He stared at the glimmering pearl and a look of realization crossed his face. He still had the leisure to comment, "Hearing about it doesn't compare to seeing it. Our Emperor Wu of Great Liang founded the nation after slaying dragons and phoenixes, obtaining both the converging water and inferior water pearls. The one in your hand must be a replica from an ancient cultivator." The glow around him dimmed slightly. He didn't need a weapon. He simply cast a spell that made the Water Wall Pearl tremble violently. Li Zijai and Li Quantao joined forces to barely block the blow, but Chuoba Changyuan was pressing hard. After 10 or so exchanges, Li Quantao's face was beginning to pale. Li Zijai was in dire condition. He should have escaped while he could. But if he broke away now, it wasn't clear whether he could even make it out, and the youth who'd come to save him would likely die in his place. So he gritted his teeth and stayed, defending alongside the youth. He coordinated quickly with Li Quantao with his spiritual sense. The young man responded, "Peak Master, I am Li Quantao of Fuchin Peak. This man is too fierce. Yuan Haiyun wouldn't open the formation, but some of our kin are not far from here. We should fight and retreat. We need to head south." Li Zijai immediately understood. He focused on calming his breath while Li Quantao took the lead. His mana boiled over, and his Dao Foundation manifested as he bought time with reckless abandon. Though Li Quantao's cultivation was comparatively weak, his Dharma artifact was formidable. The white water barrier deflected spell arts while he fought to stall Chuoba Changyuan. The latter had just come out of a battle and was still without his weapon. Thus, Li Quantao managed to hold his ground for several exchanges, but Li Quantao's complexion had already begun to pale after just a dozen exchanges. The blessing of the Great Seal allowed Chuoba Changyuan's every move to strike like a Dharma artifact. Had he not lost his favored weapon, Li Quantao would have long since been knocked from the sky. Even with multiple peak masters from Beixiang Valley, things turned out like this. I can't afford to underestimate him. Li Quantao, though not powerful, had some battle experience. He quickly swallowed a pill, triggering a downpour of Water Mansion currents. Even while coughing up blood from a blow, he responded via spiritual sense to Li Zijai, "Don't worry, Peak Master. It's just a 7 minutes journey. I Quantao can hold out until then." Chapter 777, En Cheng II, Chuoba Changyuan's expression darkened. He had already spent far too long pursuing Li Zijai, and had ventured too deep into enemy territory. Though he was still confident, he began to weigh whether the kill was truly worth it. Tension surged between the three of them, until suddenly a burst of light flared in the sky. Boom! The sky brightened abruptly. The spiritual aura of heaven and earth shifted violently, and the rise of several glowing halos caused the sky to hum in resonance. In the distance, a mountain quaked and shattered. Li Zijai squinted as the sky turned. A massive arc of golden light flickered in the distance, followed by a piece of golden brilliance plummeting from the sky. Two crisp cracks rang out as a stretch of buildings materialized and dropped into the distant mountains. Could it be a fluctuation in spiritual aura, causing something from a grotto heaven to fall into our realm? In that split second, several thoughts flashed through Li Zijai's mind. He grabbed Li Quantao and the two of them activated blood escape technique, launching into the sky under the crimson heavens as they fled south. But Chuoba Changyuan didn't follow. Instead, the devil cultivator stopped where he was. He shut his eyes and cast a spell. Li Quantao had barely survived that last bout thanks to his Dharma artifact, so he watched with growing dread. Sure enough, only a few kilometers into their escape, 6 beams of white light chased after them. Unlike the previous pale white hue, these were much thicker. The lights were tinged faintly with yellow. Alarmed, Li Quantao pulled out a talisman. Li Zijai also activated several talismans, raising the calamity dispelling heart cauldron in his hand to dispel the spell arts. Li Quantao summoned the water wall pearl again and smashed it directly toward the incoming beams without hesitating. Boom. The white light clashed with the Dharma artifact and instantly shattered into tens of thousands of blade-like fragments. Li Zijai's mana shields lasted only 2 seconds before the blades landed on his feathered robe. Golden light burst from the robe once again and dissolved the remaining blades. In the end, he only coughed up a mouthful of blood. The robe, which was a gift from his wife, had saved his life yet again. Li Zijai quickly took a pill and looked to the youth beside him. Li Quantao had taken a full face of blade fragments. A talisman had shielded his head, but he still coughed twice and reached into the air to catch his severed arm and leg. He hastily reattached them. The Water Mansion Dao Foundation body had strange properties. Unlike typical Foundation establishment realm cultivators, such injuries were not fatal. He recalled the water wall pearl and rode the blood wind once more. Despite everything, his tone remained warm as he said, "The water wall pearl's core is incredibly tough. It can even withstand attacks from a Purple Mansion realm cultivator. No need to worry." Chuoba Changyuan had vanished from view. Li Zijai exhaled deeply. Finally, he had the space to think of something else. There's still the Sunseeker ring back home, which is just as sturdy and unpredictable, but it's tied to Green Pine Temple. I've never dared to use it. As he and Li Quantao passed another checkpoint, the grand formation still shimmered brightly, clearly refusing to let them enter. The young man's face darkened, but he said nothing more, simply stating, "Peak Master, follow me. My elder brother oversees a formation not far from here. We can enter there." Li Zijai scanned the surroundings. Chuoba Changyuan was still nowhere in sight, but neither of them dared to relax. They continued to flee on their blood light until they reached a green mountain in under 7 minutes. Li Quantao clearly held more authority here than at Chengdu Pass. He didn't even report as he waved his command token and brought Li Zijai inside. The area beyond the formation was a mess, filled with the rubble of the many collapsed buildings. Yet despite the disarray, the morale remained stable. Li Quantao asked around briefly, then turned back and said, "Peak Master. My elder brother has gone to provide support and hasn't returned yet. This place is still relatively safe. Please rest and recover without worry." Li Zijai finally allowed himself to relax. Pain surged through every bone and limb while head spun and vision blurred. He forced himself to stay upright and said, "No need for such courtesy. Thank you, brother. Some debts are too great for words." "Hey, don't mention it." Li Quantao was not in much better shape himself. His internal injuries were far more severe. He wasn't some reckless youth acting on passion. He had agreed to intercept and aid Li Zijai out of gratitude, and partly because he thought his brother was stationed here. But he had underestimated Chuoba Changyuan in every regard. In the end, the wounds he suffered were far worse than expected. Now, realizing his brother wasn't even in the formation made him break out in a cold sweat. He thought, thank the heavens that devil didn't keep chasing. If he had pressed on and my brother wasn't here, both of us, and the entire formation's cultivators, would have been buried together. After fleeing and fighting for so long, both men were thoroughly exhausted in both body and spirit alike. Whatever needed doing could wait until they had healed. Each found a cave dwelling and began silent recovery. Li Zijai sat cross-legged and carefully calculated. His feathered robe had sustained damage again, its lifespan reduced by a decade or so, but it had saved his life. Fortunately, I had the Autumn Convergence pill. Fortunately, that favor was repaid. I've missed the appointed time. Chuoba Changyuan furrowed his brows, but his hands didn't slow. He had sent 6 beams of white light after the fleeing blood escape, yet he decisively abandoned the 2 and turned back in haste, flying swiftly in the direction from which he had come. Breaking through the formation had always been his main goal, while chasing the man in the feathered robe was merely a convenient aside. If he couldn't catch him, so be it. It was only a Foundation establishment realm cultivator, but if he delayed family matters, that would be a real problem. He flew over 5 kilometers before his celestial chariot rolled through white mist to catch up. Gone was Chuoba Changyun's earlier ease. He poured mana into the chariot and sped back with urgency. After a moment of spellcasting and calculation, he followed the spell art and descended into a forest. There, buried in a mossy green boulder, stood his spear, its Dharma light glimmering faintly. Since the Dharma artifact had been sealed by Li Zijai, he couldn't summon it directly and had to retrieve it himself. He landed carelessly before the stone and gave it a tug, but it didn't budge. He felt a sudden jolt and whipped around. A youth dressed in a Taoist robe patterned with cloud motifs and with neatly combed hair emerged from within the tangled red-tinted mist. The young man greeted him politely. "Fellow Taoist, that spear happens to be mine." Chuoba Changyun was already in a foul mood and an angry laugh slipped out of him. He was eager to return and in no mood for distractions. As he slowly exerted more force on the spear, he replied coldly, "Bold of you." Just as he was about to speak harsher words, he paused. The spear remained firmly embedded in the stone, unmoved despite his strength. His expression darkened further. The youth gave a slight bow as he calmly studied him. He smiled. "I came here under orders to take a share of the spoils. It was quite the coincidence when a spear fell from the heavens, landing right before me. I thought I had stumbled upon a fine Dharma artifact for free. So it belongs to a young master of the Chuoba family. No wonder you throw things around so generously." He nodded approvingly, looking quite pleased as he continued. "Your esteemed family hasn't dared set foot in the Eastern Sea since the death of Chuoba Xuenten. It's so rare to see one of you. I mean no disrespect, just that I intend to kill you." Chuoba Changyun felt something off. He stared at the youth, whose identity had become increasingly clear. The youth quietly gripped a jade talisman in his hand. A swirl of yellow and white rose around his face as he gathered power. "Dongfeng Heian at your service, young master." The youth tidied his sleeves, cupped his hands in greeting and grinned. "Young master, why haven't you run yet? Hurry along and go save your life." Chapter 778, the one from Miao Family I, Mount Qingdu. Dawn had just risen from within the mountains, gradually flickering over the treetops. The jade-like path shimmered beautifully. It was often called the Azure Steps by the families around the lake. It was a metaphor for the path of ascension. A young man quickly descended the steps, his bearing noble and composed. He wore a platinum-white Taoist robe with tightly fitted cuffs, giving him a clean and decisive appearance. Though he was bathed in golden morning light, his pupils were partially hidden in the shadow of his nose bridge and only glimmered faintly with gold. A cold and stern black-robed youth followed closely behind robes. His voice was low and steady. "Your Highness, the new disciples from each family have all entered the estate. The numbers are down by 20% compared to last year." Li Jiawei was just 17 and had focused solely on cultivating the perception technique art. When Li Zijai and Li Ziming were his age, they had just reached the Qi cultivation realm, yet he had already reached the 5th stage of the Qi cultivation realm. Li Jiawei was undoubtedly the finest talent in the family in several generations. Chen Yang too had outpaced his peers by a wide margin. Since he had only reached the Qi cultivation realm a few years ago, he was hailed as the most gifted outsider in 100 years. Many within the family believed it was due to his half-direct bloodline from the main family. Though he was widely praised, it was seen as expected, 20%. The two strolled across the peak, both well aware of the reason behind the numbers. Li Jiawei slowed to a stop with his hands clasped behind his back, golden flecks of light swirling within his pupils. The glow no longer had the strange and eerie hue it once did. Now, it clearly radiated the brilliance of mana. The golden flecks came from the grand vein golden eyes that Li Zijai had brought back years ago. He had refined the grand vein golden eyes quite early. This bright yang perception technique art was no easy feat. Ancient cultivators of the Wei State's Li family once needed 20 years to master it, yet Li Jiawei had done so with ease. Chen Yang was extremely skilled in reading people and assessing situations. He cupped his hands and replied, "The war up north remains uncertain. These people are afraid. They're afraid that if they send their families' youths here, they'll be sent to the northern front in a few years. They've each kept 1 or 2 behind, sending the rest away under the pretext of training trips. Some were sent to the east, others to the west. This limited the intake to just 20%. Since the spiritual orifice talent pool fluctuates yearly, it's hard to argue against it." Li Jiawei and Chen Yang reached the foot of the mountain, where the lake shimmered with golden light. Several cultivators in the embryonic breathing realm were navigating boats across the water. activating water dividing techniques and diving beneath to mine minerals. Li Xiaowei's eyes were half-lidded as he asked, "How many are we short?" Chen Yang replied respectfully, "Chen, Du, Su, Tian, and Lijing have all seen slight increases compared to last year. The 4 towns of Huaqian and the 7 cities of Huyu have each decreased by 10%. As for the 8 towns of Wudu, many are from the region of Mount Yue, so their numbers remain steady. But the population in Milan has withered, dropping by a full 20%. The missing names on the registry fall under the Jade Court's supervision. I dare not inquire." Li Xiaowei listened, his glowing pupils casting a glance over the water's surface as he replied, "These families have been graced for many years and are considered loyal. Chen Yang, go verify the registry and personally question each household. Also send a few family letters to the Northern Front." Chen Yang nodded in understanding. His tone was respectful, but a hint of a dark smile played at his lips. "Your Highness, just once." Li Xiaowei waved his hand and said, "Just once for now." Chen Yang took his leave, and Li Xiaowei stood by the lakeside for a moment, a hint of coldness flashing across his face. Li Zijin had been gravely wounded in that great battle and had to enter seclusion to fan his spark of life. Li Ziming had been forced to emerge. He was now patrolling the lake on one end while still refining pills and tending to Li Zijin. As a result, household affairs had been left unattended. He had grown old enough to temporarily take over matters on Mount Qingdu. The constant mobilization had forced them to not only send people north, but also dispatch others to investigate various regions. Manpower was already stretched thin. Investigating abroad was far more dangerous, mostly because of devil cultivators slipping into towns and devouring people. Taking this much risk for mere mortals hardly seemed worth it to the families. Li Xiaowei knew perfectly well that several houses under his rule were especially unwilling. However, he had no patience to negotiate. "I've just taken over household affairs, and in times of upheaval, it's best not to act too harshly. Otherwise," muttered Li Xiaowei, so he sent Chen Yang. On the surface, it was a simple inquiry, but in truth, it was a warning. Chen Yang's fierce and ruthless nature made him the perfect candidate for such a task. Li Xiaowei rode the wind upward toward the mountaintop. At the summit, he saw a stone platform, flowing with brilliance and etched with intricate patterns. A dark golden halberd was planted at its center. Its long shaft curved like a crescent moon, with a luminous white arc etched in the middle. It was shrouded in mysterious and exquisite spiritual energy, as it silently radiated brilliant light that rendered the surrounding vegetation lifeless and pale. Beside it lay a circular Dharma artifact. It was a golden red ring, about the width of a pinky, made of neither gold nor silver. "2 ancient Dharma artifacts," said Li Xiaowei in a low voice. Both were ancient artifacts. The halberd in particular came from a grotto heaven and radiated pure brilliance. Together, their value might not surpass the entire Li family, but they were certainly worth as much as all of the family's Foundation Establishment realm Dharma artifacts combined. In the current Li family, not even Li Ziming had a proper Dharma artifact. Li Zijai still used a Qi cultivation realm sword, yet they had prepared such precious artifacts for him. "Now that I've broken through to the 5th stage of the Qi cultivation realm, I can finally lay hands on these ancient Dharma artifacts," said Li Xiaowei. Li Xiaowei stepped forward, passing through the formation that veiled the stone platform. Dazzling light flared before his eyes. The halberd had been sealed for 10 years, and the formation surged with bright yang energy. Without the protection of the formation, the platform itself would have turned to white sand. Li Ziming had once tried using this artifact. Even though he possessed a bright Yang Dao foundation, the halberd had only glowed faintly in his hands. It emitted a few bursts of brilliance and nothing more. He merely lifted the artifact, then returned to pill refinement, never bothering to refine or claim it. Even now, no one knew its name. Li Xiaowei slowly approached the great halberd. Its blade had begun to hum and tremble with white light. Slowly, 2 ancient characters emerged along the halberd's shaft. Da Sheng. He gently gripped the long handle, and the halberd shivered as it started to greedily devour his mana. The golden light in Li Xiaowei's pupils overlapped and intensified as he slowly began to draw it forth. Buzz, 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 the halberd rejoiced as he refined it. A burst of golden light shot from the arc at its center, landing on him and transforming into the image of a vast sky-bright yang. The golden light vanished in an instant. As Li Xiaowei pulled the halberd free, a sudden clarity dawned in his heart. Da Sheng halberd. The halberd did not emanate much killing intent. It had been forged long ago and placed within a grotto heaven by members of Green Pine Temple. It had rarely tasted blood and had instead been nurtured by the unified spiritual qi of that world. He couldn't calculate exactly how long it had been, but it had likely rested there for over 500 years. Thus, it was brimming with spiritual energy and teeming with vitality. Yet, it was devoid of bloodlust. Li Xiaowei gave it a thorough inspection. The halberd's sturdiness and sharpness needed no further mention. After all, it had been forged in ancient times and nourished for centuries. It was far more powerful than modern Dharma artifacts. Once mana was infused into it, the halberd released invisible white light. Enemies struck by it would feel as though they were under a scorching sun. They would feel restless and would be drenched in sweat. Within the halberd's central arc lay further mystery. There was a hidden brilliance that, when activated by a bright Yang immortal foundation, could bestow its wielder with radiant power. The user would be cloaked in divine light and be able to walk upon brightness. The wielder could seize flame and radiate fearsome majesty. Li Xiaowei was instantly satisfied. Though he had yet to reach the Foundation establishment realm and could not use it to its full potential, this ancient Dharma artifact felt extremely compatible with him. It was as if it breathed alongside him, a fine Dharma artifact indeed. He slung the halberd across his back and glanced at the golden-red Sunseeker ring nearby. Though this Dharma artifact had no distinguishing features beyond its toughness, he couldn't take his eyes off it. So familiar. F. Ardap E. Macron EWEB and Sigma V E letter 2113. Calm Li Xiaowei stared at it for a few seconds, tempted to take it with him. Unfortunately, he'd heard this Dharma artifact was an important relic of Green Pine Temple and could not be taken lightly. Chapter 779, the one from Miao Family II. He exited the Grand Formation and arrived at the foot of the mountain, where he suddenly saw Nsiwei descending rapidly on the wind. The middle-aged man spoke gravely, "Reporting to your highness, a man has arrived outside the formation. He claims to be from the Miao family of Thunder Island in the southern sea. He wishes to visit Qingdu, a member of the Miao family." Li Xiaowei's expression darkened slightly as he said coldly, "Our elders are still patrolling the lake. Send up a signal flame. As for the Miao family representative, let him wait at the pavilion below the mountain." The matter of Li Qingheng had long been discussed within the family. There was a high chance the Miao family had come with ill intent. Their timing was precise, striking just as the Li family's presence had thinned and Li Zijian was gravely wounded. It was a truly perilous situation. "I wonder if it's Miao Quan. I've heard the man is quite formidable. If he were to suddenly act out, it could indeed become troublesome." Li Xiaowei folded his arms and asked, "Was he willing to enter the formation and speak in detail?" "I asked." Although he looked uncomfortable, he eventually nodded in agreement, replied Nsiwei. When he heard that the man was willing to enter the formation, Li Xiaowei had a clear idea in mind. Either he doesn't harbor much ill will, or he has no real grasp of our strength. He's just relying on the backing of a Purple Mansion realm cultivator. But once inside the Foundation Establishment Realm formation, with a late-stage Establishment Realm cultivator operating it, he'll be walking straight into danger. Since the Miao family had shown a willingness to talk, the Li family naturally preferred fewer enemies over more. Li Xiaowei responded with a touch of courtesy and instructed, "Serve him tea." He immediately started to calculate deeply. His father, Li Qingliao, arrived within the formation as well. When he heard how polite the Miao family representative was, he frowned, and Li Xiaowei said gravely, "It's probably because the reputation of Baiyan's immortal bow frightened them." The incident where Murong Wu was killed within 15 minutes. The father and son discussed the matter in detail and soon devised a response. Li Xiaowei spoke softly, "Father, please take your position and stand guard. I'll wait for uncle." Li Qingliao nodded calmly and left. Lights flickered outside the formation, indicating that Li Ziming had not been far away. He soon arrived, riding the wind. Li Ziming, clad in a golden Taoist robe, had searched around the lake but found nothing of note. He had only slain a few devil cultivators. Most of the day had passed, and he was feeling rather frustrated. He grumbled, "What a bothersome task. I have to keep checking for any traces of Foundation Establishment Realm activity. Eighth brother really has patience to spend half a year on something like this." Li Zijian was seriously injured, so Li Ziming would have to take charge himself for the moment. He didn't mind, but as he counted the days, the secret techniques he was waiting on still seemed far off. This was giving him a headache. The Purple Mansion realm, how incredibly difficult it is to attain. When he returned to the mountain and saw Li Xiaowei, he was momentarily stunned by the youth's fifth-stage Qi cultivation realm strength. Li Xiaowei spoke first, giving a brief summary of the situation. "Let him come up then," said Li Ziming. When he heard that the visitor was from the Miao family, Li Ziming's head only ached even more. Still, he had no choice but to shoulder the responsibility, so he maintained his calm composure. Li Xiaowei understood his uncle's temperament. He summoned Li Qingliao and Li Xuanxun on his behalf, preserving the elder's dignity as he gently added, "Father has already received the news and is waiting in the hall. Uncle only needs to be present. There's no need to say much." Li Ziming blinked at him in surprise, then understood and grinned. "Good." Li Xiaowei infused mana into the Desheng halberd, causing the Dharma artifact to shine brilliantly. The central arc glowed with a dazzling radiance. He handed the artifact over and said in a grave tone, "The Miao family hails from the southern sea, where devil cultivators are most numerous. Such people often fear power but not virtue. The renown of the immortal bow of Mount Baiyan carries great deterrence, so surely there's some hesitation in their hearts. Uncle, place the halberd by your side and observe coldly." Li Ziming's eyes lit up and he nodded. That I can certainly manage. He rode the wind upward and descended into the main hall, taking his seat at the head. The Miao family representative entered the hall shortly after. This Miao family member had a square face, thick brows, a burly frame, and wore strange clothes. It was neither truly Taoist nor monk-like. 2 large bronze bowls were tied at his waist. However, his manner was polite. I am Miao Yi of Thunder Island. Greetings, fellow Taoist. Miao Yi, too, cultivated the Thunder Dao, so his voice boomed like rolling thunder. Li Ziming leaned slightly in his golden robe. The crescent-shaped Da Sheng halberd stood tall beside him. He looked down and said, I am Li Ziming. Greetings, fellow Taoist. Whatever else one could say, Li Ziming had a commanding presence. His cultivation was deep, and one hand rested on the armrest as the teachings of his father Li Yuanping seemed to come alive from memory. His bearing had become vividly refined. Miao Yi's eyes landed on the Da Sheng halberd, and its familiar form nearly made him leap up. His heart dropped, thundering like a storm, and he thought to himself, so it was him. It was Li Xuanfeng in the Grotto Heaven. He killed Yu Muxian and seized this halberd from Tang Shedu. Miao Yi had once entered the Green Pine Grotto Heaven and chanced upon this very halberd. He had fought bitterly with Sidu Chen of the Golden Tang Gate for it, only to run into Tang Shedu. He had nearly lost his life fleeing in panic from Tang Shedu. He had only survived because a group arrived and inadvertently saved him. They said Li Xuanfeng had joined the Ning family. But this weapon is clearly in the hands of the Li family. Of course, it's still Li. Hard to draw the line between them. Miao Yi had long wondered which family Li Xuanfeng truly belonged to. Now clarity dawned. He looked at Li Ziming with new eyes. He could see streams of radiant light flowing from the man. His immortal foundation was no ordinary one. His aura was dense and powerful. This was clearly a veteran at the late stage of the foundation establishment realm. Though he had never heard of Li Ziming before, the man's strength was clearly formidable. Weighing the situation, Miao Yi lowered his voice and smiled. I've long heard of your renowned Taoist. I once met Senior Xuanfeng in the secret realm and he saved my life. I've always felt immense gratitude toward your esteemed family. It is truly an honor to meet you today. Oh, Li Ziming's face showed a flicker of interest as he asked, I'd like to hear the details. Miao Yi recounted the story carefully, beginning with his encounter with Sidu Chen. He mentioned the Golden Tang Gate twice, only for the expression of the elderly man nearby to instantly darken. He was clearly displeased by the name. Li Xuanxuan had personally endured a Golden Tang Gate ambush and had never forgotten it. Li Ziming knew this well and coldly added, so it was the Golden Tang Gate. Worry not, fellow Taoist. Sidu Chen is dead. He perished in the Eastern Sea. At first, Miao Yi didn't think much of it, but when he repeated the story a few more times, a chill suddenly crept through his heart. The Li family and the Golden Tang Gate are clearly hostile towards each other. There's been no word of Sidu Chen ever since the Grotto Heaven incident. Fallen in the Eastern Sea. Could it be? He was killed by Li Xuanfeng too. Chapter 780, True Essence I. Thoughts raced through his mind like lightning. Since no one from the Li family had spoken, Miao Yi had no choice but to continue and said quietly, I came this time to resolve a certain misunderstanding. My family uncle encountered a fairy from your esteemed family in the Eastern Sea, and upon suddenly seeing a senior's Dharma artifact, became overwhelmed with emotion. He's reckless by nature, and when he saw the spear, he couldn't restrain himself. I heard he had a dispute with one of your seniors. I came precisely because of this. Letter 192 REEWEB and retroflex OVEL. Calm though Miao Yi looked rough, his words showed a shrewd mind. His phrasing was tactful, but the Li family wasn't so easily misled. Everyone knew whether Miao Quan had acted on impulse when he encountered Li Qingheng in the Eastern Sea or had ulterior motives. Li Ziming showed no reaction, and both Li Xuanxuan and Li Qingleo's expressions only had the thinnest veneer of politeness. Miao Yi let out a quiet sigh and said solemnly, My family uncle was cut down by the head of the Shen family and nearly lost even his demonic core. He has already paid the price. May your esteemed family take some satisfaction from his miserable end, and perhaps not pursue the matter further. Li Ziming stared at him silently and only spoke after Miao Yi had finished. These words are better said to my aunt. Surely, fellow Taoist, you didn't come all this way just to apologize. Speak your true purpose. Miao Yi could only lower his head and reply, To speak frankly, the spear known as Duruo once belonged to our Thunder Island. Long ago, one of our elders left to train in the mainland and ended up with enmity against Azure Pond Sect and Golden Feather Sect. This grudge was rather convoluted. The Golden Feather Sect accused our elder of stealing cultivation techniques, while Azure Pond Sect claimed he harbored remnants of the Lingyu Gate and helped a direct descendant of the Chen family escape. Miao Yi smiled awkwardly. Heaven bears witness that our Miao family has practiced thunder arts for generations. At most, we know a few spells for summoning and directing lightning, though some later called it demonic. Who among us uses blood arts or shamanic spell arts? Let alone any high-level thievery. Surely someone was stirring trouble behind the scenes. Uncertain of the Li family's stance toward Azure Pond sect and Golden Feather sect, Miao Yi chose his words carefully. Though he was polite on the surface, his implication was clear. They had falsely accused and persecuted his family. The smiling man didn't dare speak harshly before the Li family, but he had undoubtedly cursed both sects behind closed doors. For now, he simply said, "I came here today to ask about the origin of that spear. I hope your esteemed family might be willing to share some information. If it came from somewhere else, was my elder's body perhaps found with it?" Li Qinglio snorted noncommittally and quietly asked Li Xuanxun beside him, "This matter goes far back. Elder, do you recall anything?" Miao Yi immediately grew nervous as he looked at the elderly man. Yet he found it reasonable and thought, that's right, only by asking these senior elders of the family can I hope to learn anything. Li Xuanxun naturally refused to speak first. Instead, he first asked, "I wonder what immortal foundation your elder possessed and what protective treasures he carried. I may have some memory of this. If you could share a few details, perhaps I might recall more." Miao Yi quickly nodded. "My elder's name was Miao Dushan, a man of extraordinary talent. He merged thunder arts with devil techniques through his own efforts and established the current Dao lineage of Thunder Island. He likely carried several precious devil techniques, and his mount was a creature called the Kangxiu Python. It was large in size and skilled in manipulating water currents. He also had a spirit artifact called the Heavenly Crimson Pearl, blood red in color. It should be no larger than a palm. The records of it have long been lost. I can no longer recall its exact form." Though the speaker had no special intent, the listener paid close attention. Li Xuanxun, who had witnessed the events himself, grew alert. He clearly remembered that the Duruo spear had been found in a snake demon's cave. That very demon cave lay beneath their feet and was connected to Mount Qingdu. It was precisely where the Qingdu cave dwelling now stood. Back then, we acquired several items, 2 manuals, 1 spear, and a single pearl. The Blood Dharma manual was claimed by Zhang Yun of Golden Feather sect, while the River Mountain Sutra still rests unread in the treasure vault. As for the Blood Red Pearl, it was found on the snake demon's remains. Zhang Yun claimed it was a demon core and left with 2 items. Li Xuanxun's pupils widened, and his mind roared like thunder. It wasn't a demon core. How could it possibly be a demon core? Waves of shock surged through his heart. The truth he'd suddenly uncovered left a bitter taste. He had heard the account directly from Li Tongya, and even remembered the exact conversation between them. Zhang Yun and my uncle each chose 1 item. Zhang Yun, being slightly stronger, picked the demon core first. At the time, the Li family had barely owned any Dharma artifacts. Li Tongya was merely a novice cultivator then, with a battered artifact of his own. How could he have recognized the worth of a Foundation Establishment Realm artifact? A demon core from a Foundation Establishment Realm creature. How could that possibly compare to the Duruo spear? Later, as the Li family acquired more Foundation Establishment Realm Dharma artifacts and saw Li Wushou's demon core, they knew it merely emitted a cold aura. It was never on par with a real Dharma artifact. The family often explained its uniqueness as the result of a failed Purple Mansion Realm breakthrough. But after hearing Miao Yi's words, how could Li Xuanxun not understand now? Of course, no wonder Zhang Yun was so composed. He quietly walked away with a Purple Mansion Realm spirit artifact. The things in that cave weren't left by a snake demon at all. They were remnants of Miao Dushan, guarded by the Kangxiu Python. Even the claim that Zhang Yun had come to retrieve the Blood Dharma manual, it likely wasn't Golden Feather Sex at all. It was Miao Dushan's personal manual. He took the most valuable item and left behind the Duruo spear, which clearly pointed to their identity. Of course, the Miao family would eventually come looking for answers. If not for King Hong's overwhelming strength and fortunate timing in encountering Miao Quan, she likely would have been attacked outright. Her life would have been in danger, and once a grudge like that took root, who would care about right or wrong anymore? If we had clashed with the Miao family's Purple Mansion Realm cultivators, there wouldn't even be a chance to speak. A fleeting thought flashed through his mind, and he couldn't help but feel a heavy gloom settle over his heart. Zhang Yun wasn't even the foremost among Golden Feather Sect's younger generation back then, nor was he yet one of the cultivators closest to Purple Mansion Realm. But his methods were already clear to see. He surpassed Kai Jian by a good margin. As Li Xuanxun's thoughts circled, he noticed Miao Yi still staring blankly at him. Li Xuanxun hesitated, then asked first, "Has your esteemed family come for the Duruo spear?" Miao Yi hesitated for a moment before answering, "Not exactly. We've searched for our elder for centuries. Our first wish is to retrieve his body and spirit shell to return them to the island. Second, we hope to find the whereabouts of the Heavenly Crimson Pearl. As for the devil techniques and Dharma artifacts, those are merely a regretful loss. After all, it's a Purple Mansion Realm spirit artifact. No family would easily give that up." Li Xuanxun fell silent for a while, unsure how to respond. He could only say quietly, "Fellow Taoist, I cannot say." Miaoyi didn't seem surprised. His eyes stayed fixed on the elder as he spoke quietly. I understand your meaning, elder, but I cannot report back to my family without some cause or context. They will inevitably grow suspicious of your esteemed family. Fearing that Li Ziming might erupt in anger from his seat above, he deliberately emphasized urgently, a purple mansion realm spirit artifact. Our Taoist patriarch greatly values it. Were it not for the North-South conflict, the other family's watchfulness, and poor timing, the old master would have come in person long ago.